Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to give a few seconds for people to be able to join in, and then we'll get going. Okay, that's great. Starting to see people join now. Good evening, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us on this Wednesday evening for the 43rd episode of Words on Whiskey, brought to you by Irish Whiskey Magazine. This week we have a very special guest and friend of mine and friend of the magazine and friend of the show and general all-around good guy, Stephen Magennis. So if anybody's not familiar with Stephen, we'll get a good dive into what Stephen's all about. But certainly he's been a fantastic asset and a great friend to the Irish whiskey community, and is always saying important things that sometimes the industry doesn't always listen to, but we'll get his opinion on some of those things during the show. So just to say that we'll be taking a little bit of a break from the normal running of the show over the next 5 weeks, but we'll fill you in with those details tomorrow. So we're taking part in something rather exciting, and I'm really looking forward to it, but we'll let you know what that is next week. So I suppose the best thing to do is really bring our friend in and have a chat. Good evening, Stephen. How are you?
Not too bad, thanks. There's nice things.
Not too bad. I'm well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, all good.
All good. Keeping safe and well.
Yeah, probably. No, all good. Can't complain.
Yeah. I mean, we don't see you on podcasts or social media very often, so thank you very much for giving us a shot at it.
Yeah, I probably get a lot of criticism. I don't, if I'm honest, I don't really like doing them.
Yeah.
I think it's probably one of those things. I don't actually consider myself that much of an interesting guy. I don't really do an awful lot outside of a few different sports and a bit of a whiskey nerd. So yeah, it's something I don't really do that often. So you're either lucky or very unlucky.
Well, look, you've always been overly modest and self-deprecating, and I suppose that's one of your strong points, I suppose, if you like. But look, if that shouldn't be self-deprecating, it's yourself.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there'd be many people in my family or close connections say I'd be modest, but yeah, maybe in the whiskey world.
Well, look, I mean, I've known you since I suppose I started getting really deep into whiskey, and it must be 12, 15 years now at this stage. So, I mean, you're still a young man, but you started very young as well. What was it that sparked your interest in whiskey, or was it something deliberate that you decided to get into the whiskey game?
Not really. Like no one in my family drinks whiskey. My older brother would drink whiskey when you could probably say it's a northern thing when he's allowed to drink whiskey, or when the wife isn't around, he would drink whiskey. But it was no one in my family drank whiskey. Now, my granddad was a big whiskey drinker. He was a Bushmills and Powers fan, but mainly a Powers fan. When the English bought Bushmills, he transferred to Powers. So
right, okay.
The rest of his life, he would have drank Powers. But yeah, it was for me. It was more of a job. And kind of paid the rent for a while, but it was something that I ended up getting into, which was.
So you're from up north, not far outside Belfast, are you?
Yeah, it's only about 25 minutes from Belfast, so it's a big enough town. It's as big as.
Is it Lurgan? You're from?
Yeah, so Lurgan, it would be a big town, quite a industrial town. So there'd be a lot of factories, a lot of banks, a lot of bookies, a lot of pubs.
Yeah.
everything you'd want in one town. Yeah. So I come from Kilbegan, which is in Armagh, so it's not too far from Belfast. So
what brought you into the whiskey industry? Was Celtic Whiskey Shop your first inkling into?
Yeah, it was so when I was 20 at the time, I started Celtic Whiskey Shop in 2010. And I moved to Dublin in 2010 from Lurgan. And if you can think 2010, how bad Dublin was suffering, you can only imagine how bad a kind of industrial town that was pretty much built on processing factories and builders. You can only imagine how bad a small town like that was hit. So for me, it was either stay there and work in a factory, which probably I didn't really want to do, or move to Dublin and try to do something.
And did you move to Dublin for this role here in Celtic?
No. My uncle lived in Dublin at the time, so it was quite an easy move because I had family in Dublin, which was quite good. But then I applied for Celtic Whiskey Shop and went for a few interviews with Ollie. A couple of months later, he finally came back to me. And it was actually quite a misfortune that happened. One of the main people within the shop at the time was a guy called Seamus. He went in for a heart bypass, and ever from there, it was kind of like I was the fortunate person of his misfortune that I started working within Celtic. And at the time, Seamus was quite. He looked after a lot of people don't realize there's probably 3 sides to Celtic Whiskey Shop, maybe 4 sides now, with the introduction of a strong e-commerce, how it's grown within the alcohol world. But at the time, it would have been whiskey retail, wine retail, and whiskey and wine wholesale. So they would have supplied wine and whiskey to pretty much nearly every single top bar and top 5-star hotel, top restaurant within the country. Yeah. Where Seamus was pretty much in charge of running that side of the business. So when he went out, it was kind of pretty much that I was going to go in and do his role, and it was flagged quite early that it's probably not a role for someone like of 20 years of age. It's not a role for them. So I then went into work within the whiskey team, and at the time it was quite a good team there when I first started. But it was a team that probably they didn't want to be there anymore, or they probably didn't want to work in the alcohol industry anymore. And I worked with a guy called Derek Pierce, who'd be a good friend, and even now he'd still be a good friend. 10 years later, and I probably haven't worked with him in 6 years.
Right.
But he was a guy that pretty much when I went in, he pretty much took me under his wing in a way, and he's a kind of big Scotch lad. So it was either one of those ones, you either done it, or I always done it because I didn't want to know what the second option was. Right. So, but yeah, then there was Michael Lawler, who was floating, I think still floating around the industry, and there's another guy called Derek Conley. His brother owns Baggett Street Wines. Then obviously Al Higgins is still within Celtic. So the team was quite good, but I was kind of the first of the new brigade that came into Celtic. So yeah, I started there.
At the right time though as well. I mean, the boom, if you like, pretty much coincided with you starting there, or maybe not the boom. It was pre-boom, I think. But
yeah, like I think you could probably say Ollie's a bit like myself in a way, is that he wouldn't be one for the limelight or to do these type of things. It's not a style, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't say I'd be as bad as Ali at it in a way, but he kind of keeps himself to himself, and he's very young family, and when you're in the whiskey industry, you could have something to do every single night. So it comes to the stage that when you do your 9 to 5 and you go home, and sometimes in his case it's 8 to 8, most days it's the time he needs is for his family. So when within that, it was like going into that team is like everyone was probably minimum 20 years older than me. I started there when I was 20.
Was there a buzz? Because I mean, I don't think we can underplay in any way the significant role that Celtic Whiskey Shop had to play within the resurgence, if you like, of Irish whiskey, in terms of an outlet even for people to meet and to go and learn and to go and purchase whiskies that weren't typical on the shelf whiskies. I mean, it was very much a focal point.
Yeah, I don't like it's something that I just can't get my head around. There's a lot of people in the industry now who don't realize what Celtic done for the industry. Like Celtic Whiskey Shop single-handedly created premium whiskey. They created a platform to sell premium Irish whiskey. premium Irish whiskey wasn't sold. Obviously, you had. Like, it's probably wrong to say that it wasn't sold, but it wasn't. It wasn't. There was 6 or 7 premium products at the time. You had Jameson 18, you had Bushmills 21. You had Middleton Very Rare. They were pretty much the premium products of that era. And you had your stalemates of a Powers 12-year-old, Redbreast 12-year-old, and Jameson 12-year-old. But Celtic gave a platform for even companies like who I work for now and all the companies that I've worked for to actually sell premium products. So yeah, I think now, obviously, when the industry has grown to what it is now and where there's premium products everywhere, I don't think Celtic probably gets the credit it does deserve for what it did do. And it was something that, for me, it does kind of, like, places like Celtic, and there's a lot of places like Palace Bar is another one, that great whiskey, I guess great whiskey bar to go to, but there's a lot of great whiskey bars around the country, and they probably in today's world they don't get the credit, but yeah, definitely Celtic is one of those ones that, and like even in my younger days, I always remember any new distillery coming on board, any new whiskey distillery coming on board, like the first place you go is Celtic. And in fairness, Tally, most of the times he would always pay it up front and written a check straight away for anyone, because he knew that in his days in 2003, opening up an Irish whiskey shop in Dublin, there wasn't much opportunity to do it. So he always realised how much he struggled, and that was something that he always tried to do. Obviously, the business is a lot bigger now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, and he has to, moved into casks as well, and various different programs and the tastings. But when you were there, was there the air of excitement or the air that Irish whiskey was going somewhere?
It's a tricky one, but yes and no. Internationally, no.
Right.
In terms of internationally, people knew a lot about whiskey, but they were coming in and they were looking Scottish whiskey. They weren't coming in, they weren't really looking Irish whiskey. I always remember, like, there's the big thing at the moment, you hear of the cask strength crusade and people looking cask strength whiskies.
Yeah.
In 2010, and I'll be brutally honest with you, probably even now, the only time you ever sold it was only pretty much one cask strength whiskey on the shelf that was affordable, and it was Redbreast 12 cask strength. The only time you ever sold a Redbreast 12 cask strength was when someone mistakenly sold it as a 12-year-old Redbreast.
By mistake, yeah.
And there wasn't a demand for cask strength whiskies in that era, but there also wasn't, the consumer wasn't there either.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the consumer wasn't there I remember when I first started, there used to be as much craft beer in Celtic Whiskey Shop as there was Irish whiskey. And I think as well, like the other side of Celtic Whiskey Shop that it probably doesn't get credit for, it has as much Scottish whiskey as some of the best Scottish whiskey shops in the world.
Absolutely,
Ali was the first importer in Ireland for Bowmore, like Morrison Bowmore, Suntory. They imported Yamazaki before. I can remember. Like, this probably sums up the buzz of what whiskey was when I started Celtic Whiskey Shop. The staff price, I think the shelf price was like €90, and the staff price was like €75.
Right.
For a bottle of Yamazaki 18.
Yeah, and now it's fetching over 500. Yeah.
Yeah, like these things consistently retail now for 500 quid. And again, that wasn't that long ago when you think of it. It's not.
No.
Like, it's not 10, 15, 20 years away. It was like, this was 6-7 years ago.
Yeah. Well, I know you're an avid collector as well, and you've always given good advice in terms of collecting. What do you make of the collecting scene now and the price of some of the whiskies out there?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I'd say it's a tough one, because even when the boxes arrive, it's like, whether they arrive to my parents' house or they arrive to Dublin, there's just people looking at me as if, like, what are you doing? But like, for me, whiskey collecting is, I like anything that you can get an edge on.
Yeah. And
it's probably competitiveness. I'd be quite competitive at anything I do. If I do something, I probably have to give it 110, 120%. So yeah, it's something, and that's where the likes of whiskey, even kind of going back to when I started Celtic Whiskey Shop, there was a lot of big personalities within Celtic Whiskey Shop at the time, and they didn't really want kind of scruffy Armagh lad coming in trying to do something within the whiskey world in Dublin where he's probably not really from. So there was a lot for me was kind of you learned quick or you fell by the wayside, and I probably did learn quite quick, which was
well. You did. I mean, you certainly did. I mean, and it really stands to, I think, because anybody that has a conversation with you and they mention any particular whiskey at all, you usually come back with the answer, what batch number or whatever. It at that level of detail. That was that a conscious thing to go and learn all these and really do a lot of research into all the different brands?
And again, when you work with big personalities in anywhere, you're probably embarrassed into learning quite quick because there was that kind of big ego coming over the top of you, telling you when you were wrong. And there's only so many times when you have a competitive personality that it's like, right, I actually have to go one thing. And I actually got quite lucky because when it was about 2011, 2012, I was in Celtic Whiskey Shop about 18 months, and Ali really kind of took me under his wing within the kind of tasting. So I think if you think of tasting clubs now, like the tastings we done in Celtic Whiskey Shop back in the day was unheard of. Like the first ever, like it mightn't have been the first, but it was probably the most high profile redbreast tasting where you had redbreast from the 60s, 70s, 80s, right up through to the new ones. Jameson, where you had Jameson tastings, so you were putting 1920s bottles out. Middleton single cask tastings, where there was kind of 5 or 6 Middleton single casks on the Celtic Whiskey Shop had released. So Ali he gave me probably the time, and probably too much time and too much faith, too much trust in a way to do these tastings. And the good thing as well is most of them I was doing them alongside him, so you're kind of learning for someone that's been in the industry 30 odd years, and I suppose he probably go mad if he said he's been in the industry 30 odd years, highlighting his age.
Well, Ali's a young man. Ali's a young.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I think that really stands to you is that your knowledge isn't limited to Irish whiskey, and you know as much about the Scotch and the bourbons and the Japanese as the Irish.
It's something that within, and actually I've seen Mark McLaughlin's on, and Mark alluded to it last week, is that the reason why, like if you think of the people I've worked with in Celtic over the years, like Mark, when the kind of the new team that came in through Celtic Whiskey Shop and kind of the older generation had left, and Ali had got kind of fresh young blood in that was going to bring the shop to probably the next level. In terms of when things were reopening, there was more money floating around Dublin. There was a lot more tourism in Dublin. There was a lot richer people. There was a lot of celebrities coming through the door at Celtic Whiskey Shop that could spend money that you could only dream of ever accumulating in your life. So there was the thing that Ali put a lot of faith in those staff, but he invested a lot of money in them. Like I've been to, I'd say over 70 distilleries around the world, probably 50 in Scotland, done 6 or 7 in America, I've probably done more distilleries outside of Ireland.
More distilleries than race courses.
Yeah, I'd say racing is race courses are good, but sometimes they're not really educational. No. But well, look, I mean, I remember you were there, and I remember you had the opportunity to leave, and I know it was a difficult decision for you. What was it that made you take on a new role somewhere else? Yeah, I'd say probably a few different things. I'd say Ali wanted rid of me. I'd say there was the opportunity as well to and again I'd be quite I would be competitive, and I'd be quite career driven as well. And the things I do is most things I do in life is quite calculated.
Right.
Like,
you wouldn't think so.
Touch wood, I haven't made a bad decision yet in career wise, but it was. Like I sat down with Ali and I just said, listen, there's an opportunity to come up to work with Beam within Byron Fitzwilliam, who are the biggest distributor in the Republic of Ireland, and like some of the best brands you could imagine are within their portfolio. And at the time, Ollie said, "Listen, it's probably a good move." And so, in fairness to him, he took his Celtic Whiskey Shop hat off, being the managing director of the company. He probably, maybe my ego was a bit big here, but he probably knew there was a education piece leaving the business, but it was for probably the better of my career. And and it's probably a good thing, because since I left, we've probably become better friends.
Right. Well, yeah, it's like separated couples become good pals afterwards. But
yeah, it was I wouldn't go that far now, but yeah, it's everywhere I've went, he's probably still supported the company I work with. So yeah, I left there and I went to a company called Barry & Fitzwilliam. So they're a Cork wholesale company, and it's probably wrong just to say they're a Cork wholesale company. They are the biggest distributor, and they formed in the 1980s. There was two quite influential drinks guys, a guy called Michael Barry and another guy called Chris Murphy. And Chris Murphy owned Fitzwilliam Wines, and Michael Barry owned Barry's Wine and Wholesalers in Cork. And I'd say at the time, Chris had a lot of high-profile brands, but he also had a lot of high-profile customers. But Michael had the vision of being a big wholesaler at the time, so he had all the infrastructure in place. He had the bonded warehouse, which is quite difficult to get. So they both of them set up a Barry & Fitzwilliam. And like over the years, and when I sat down with the guys, I remember going in, and it was the time John Cashman had rang me, and in fairness, I didn't really know John that well at the time, but I knew him just through Celtic Whiskey Shop. And he rang me and he said, "Listen, there's an opportunity to work with Beam Suntory within Barry & Fitzwilliam." And I sat down and chatted with the lads, and the first thing they asked, Michael and another guy, Kevin, who I worked with, he asked, like, I said pretty much like, where am I growing in here? I just don't want to work with, you have all these amazing brands. And they did over the kind of 4 or 5 years I was there. Yeah. I worked with Macallan, Dalmore, Highland Park, obviously all the Beam products, Lafroig, all Bowmore, the Japanese products, Bowmore, Auchentoshan, obviously Cooley brands in Kilbegan, Tyrconnell. But then even bigger brands were, like another brands where I probably learned a hell of a lot more about the industry, and like brands like Brewdog, Jägermeister. I mean, it's just not, it's something that we don't, for someone like me, it was, at the time when I went there, it was like I started off as a brand ambassador, and I went in to just work with the Beam brands, but the time I left, it was a hell of a lot more than that. And for me, it was, I needed to kind of carve out a career. And I remember looking at the industry, and it was just like, the industry at the time was the toss of a coin. Is this going to work or isn't it going to work? Is this investment going to pay off within what's happening in the industry, or isn't it? And for me, within the kind of brand ambassador, it probably wasn't a job that was ever going to fulfill what I wanted to do. Like, it's a very difficult job to do. It's late nights, a lot of alcohol. Now, the other side, nobody forces you to drink alcohol, but you're in that environment 24/7, and it's not something that when you get to my age now, 30, where it's you.
Did it take its toll, Stephen? I mean, do those late nights, because we talk about brand ambassadors, and we see the kind of the romantic, the exciting, the intriguing part of what we think their role is. But, you know, trolling home after a tasting at 12 o'clock at night, you know, and then getting up early again, it's not an easy life.
Yeah, like I'd say in the kind of 3 years I was in Barry & Fitzwilliam, 3 years I was kind of working as a brand ambassador, but in the 5 years in total I was there, I'd say I stayed in 500 different hotels. Wow. And it was every single week you were away 3 nights a week, and that was a credit to Barry & Fitzwilliam as well, and a credit to their sales staff who constantly had me in their areas. It was like, if you were in Dingle, like pretty much how to start it off, left Dublin, probably went to Killarney one night, went to Dingle, went to Killarney on, say, a Tuesday night, went to Dingle on a Wednesday night, ended up in Cork on a Thursday night, made your way back home on a Friday. And the following week, you could have been in Galway, you could have been then to Mayo, somewhere else, and it was pretty much all here. So it's one of those ones that's it was great for kind of after I worked with quite a good guy called Kevin O'Malley, who was the commercial director within Barry & Fitzwilliam. He was kind of the guy that for me, it was, I looked up to him as much as I would look up to, say, someone like Ali, because he was a guy where I actually looked at him and said, right, that's the type of role where I want to go to. I want to somewhere along the lines become a commercial director for one of these big enough sales companies or one of these big enough companies, and I kind of want to get away from this lifestyle of just constantly drinking and not really. What you said does it wear away at you. It does. The fun part of it goes away because it just becomes a chore, and it becomes very monotonous of another night away from your friends, your family.
I'm sure there are good nights and bad nights, like in any role. But are the brands doing enough to protect the brand ambassadors?
Hey, this is a question that probably being live, you probably can't really be as. No, I will. To be honest, I will be honest. I don't think they are, and that's my. I don't agree with the system that we have on brand ambassadors, that we just throw a 20-year-old or 21-year-old kid into America, give them 30 grand on a credit card, and just get them to go from pub to pub to buy drinks. That put aside, most of these brand ambassadors do come back, and like one of my good friends, Michael Cowman, is doing quite well in the industry. But there's a lot of people that come back. There's a lot of people come back and have done incredible jobs within the industry. But I don't think our scene is 30. I don't look it. I don't feel it either. But it's I don't. To be honest, I don't want to criticize it because it's a vital part to what this industry is, and they're very, very important people within the Irish whiskey industry, because they're like every single brand ambassador out on the ground are foot soldiers for our industry, and they do more for the industry than they probably get credit for doing. They're actually out there talking about the brands 24/7. But I just wish there probably was a little bit more protection. There probably was a bit more protection for them when they're in these markets. There's no one, from what I see now, I could be completely wrong, but I'm not.
I'd like to think it's changing, Stephen. I'd like to think it's changing, and that the welfare of brand ambassadors is coming more to the fore. But I know in the early days, certainly, it was, like you said, 500 hotels is a lot.
Yeah, and it's like, well, I don't think that's that's just what my job was. I mean, it was something that when you're it's not like, that's not, I don't consider that's a brand ambassador. I consider that's more just working in a commercial role. Like a lot of people who work for Andrex or Kellogg's are in the same thing. They're not, but I just think when you're a 21-year-old put into a market away from your friends, away from your family, dumped in, and given a credit card to go unlimited. I don't think that's. Sometimes it just doesn't sit with me.
Yeah. Well, there's a fair question from Liam. Hi, Liam. Good evening. What would you change about the brand roles?
Of a brand ambassador role, it's a tough one because there isn't enough jobs within the industry to actually turn and say, right, let's bring in brand ambassadors, and we'll actually give every single one of them a job. There isn't enough jobs domestically, and definitely within like companies like the ones I've worked with, there isn't But I think like a brand ambassador role should be more of there should be a career at the end of it, and there should be something in it. There needs to be.
And Alan, and he's sharing his thoughts there.
Yeah, like there's like this. I'm not whatever. Like I'm a old man. I'm not criticizing brand ambassadors. I think they're the best people in the industry. It's the toughest job you'll ever do in the industry. You actually, for someone with a very grumpy head on them like me, it's quite a different. Like if you look at Sarah Kennedy there, who works in a Belfast distilling company with McConnell's, she's fantastic. There's another girl in the north, Lauren, who works with burst mills. Like, they're incredible, and they're constantly out there, positive, and they're incredible at what they do. And you can see that when the passion with what they do is just amazing. So and like, even if you look at our own unofficial brand ambassador in Jarlath, like the guy, the passion that this guy has is just incredible for the brand. So like, I'm not saying that brand ambassadors are bad in any way. I think I was just saying.
No, but just say they could be looked after better, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just think it's a very difficult place to be as a 21-year-old sent to America with a credit card. It sounds fun. Yeah. But when you do that for 730 days straight, how fun does it become? Where does it end up? The first thing I was told when I walked into the alcohol industry was that you're dealing with a medicine. If you abuse it, you'll never work in the industry again. Well, and it was something that it was always told to me that, listen, this is what it is. It's a drug. It's not. So it can be difficult.
But on the plus side, of course, and if you do manage to maintain yourself well and they are looked after well, I think, it's an excellent stepping stone into developing your career. And obviously you benefit from that as well. And
yeah, no, like I did, but for me it was I got the exposure to do it, and I worked in great companies, and for me it was about what's the next step, and for me it was to get out of being within that brand ambassadorial role and going into a more commercial sales driven role, and for me that's where it was. My good mate there, Michael Martin, it's not the Taoiseach. He must be looking. I must owe him money or something. He's coming out with compliments like that.
Well, there were the people that make those comments, Stephen. I mean, and I know you're very modest, but I mean that people do hold you in very high esteem, and they appreciate your knowledge for sure, and you've always been very generous with it. But tell me, you starting in your career and you developing your career, who were the key figureheads that you looked up to in the industry?
People I looked up to.
And influencers, yeah.
Yeah, like there's people like John Quinn, for instance. He's been in the industry such a long time, and like there's no one knows the industry better than John Quinn does. He's like the guy's kind of pretty much he is
an institution.
He is. He epitomizes what the industry is. At the time, it's quite difficult because when I get into the industry, it was completely different. Probably people now it's probably an easier question if you ask now, who do I look up to? And it's the likes of people like when I made a conscious decision to move back to the north. Like obviously I still live in Dublin, but go back to working for a distillery in the north. And there's people like Billy Layton, the guy's just an absolute genius. Like he's like if you just look at Middleton in total, like if Kevin O'Garman, who's now their new master distiller, but this guy just transformed what Irish whiskey was. What he's done over the years, like people like him will. And it's probably wrong to say, but now he's the master distiller in Middleton. I actually think his role previous was more important to the success of Middleton than what.
Well, he's still maintaining that, of course. He's still maintaining that role as well.
The guy's a genius. Like there's no all the masters in Middleton are just incredible. Like Billy Layton, and you've seen Dave McCabe now coming through. Like I can remember doing an academy with Dave McCabe a few years ago, and if you look at him now, the guy he's excelling through. He's just excelling through the industry at such a fast rate, but he deserves every bit of it because the work he puts in. But yeah, like the likes of someone like Billy Layton is someone who I would really look up to, and like I hope in 30 or 40 years time when it's time to retire that if it was half as successful as him, I'd be doing well.
Yeah. You mentioned there that the industry has changed phenomenally since when you started. What are the 3 most significant changes that you've noticed?
This probably contradicts what when I say premiumization.
Yeah.
And the influx of premium products being introduced to the market. for the success of Jameson has been incredible. So to Irish whiskey globally, of Jameson is in 140 markets. It's absolutely incredible, because there's 140 markets that Irish whiskey's in, and there's 140 markets that we can piggyback off the back of Jameson's success and get into the whiskey industry, and or to get into international whiskey markets, and to get into, so like for that. But then if we think of that as a trend, as premiumization, is it a trend? Because if you think of what Irish whiskey global sales are, if you think of the top 3 selling brands in Jameson, Tullamore Dew, and Bushmills, either all of it or a large percentage of it is made in one distillery. If we go to the next biggest selling brands by Dublin UFC Fire, I mean, it's nearly all of it is made within that one distillery again. Then you go further down to Kilbegan, is obviously all made in Cooley. Then you go to the next 2, Paddy and Powers, which is all made in that one distillery. Yeah. But then if you think of if I asked you the question, what is the top 5 most famous Irish brands? If you went into a pub in Spain, you went into a pub in California, you went into a pub in Moscow, what would be the top 5 brands you think they would say?
Well, look, the majority of them are going to come from Middleton, of course, and then you have 2 or 3 others.
Yeah. So would you say Jameson, Bushmills, Tullamore Dew, Powers, and Paddy?
Yeah, that would be the 5 that would come to mind. Yeah.
Then name the top 5 Scottish brands, the most famous brands. Would you go Bruichladdich, Macallan, Dalmore, Lagavulin, Lafroig, Highland Park?
Yeah.
So what's the difference between
them? Price.
Like, for me, the thing is, one is blended whiskey, and in Ireland we make blended whiskey and we promote blended whiskey.
Yeah.
In Scotland, they pretty much everyone makes blended whiskey. Like, most of the sales are blended whiskey, but they promote premium single malt whiskey. So if you think of for us, as even within Echlinville at the moment, and like all the other cities you've seen, Dahi was there, and a good friend, and David and Sharcross, like, we all make premium whiskey. So until premium whiskey starts to dominate in all these other markets instead of 2 or 3 markets globally, then it's very hard for us all to grow, because the reason the industry is growing is off cheaper blended whiskey.
Yeah. And but does that not mean that at that level there are more opportunities to come in at the lower cost blended whiskies?
But so there's more opportunities for us to go into the lower cost.
Well, yeah, all the new distilleries. I mean, the vast majority of new distilleries now are coming in with a premium product.
Yeah, but we don't have huge rectifying column stills that we can put out 2 million LPA a year of cheap grain. But then the products that most of us make, our pot stills, are so small that we can't actually produce enough liquid to cheap enough to actually compete with these guys. But then the other side is that we don't have tens of millions to invest in actually getting our product side by side. And it's like Jameson have done an incredible job. Like what they have done for the Irish whiskey industry is next to none. They're just sensational at what they have done. But yeah, we need, like, for me, we need probably more.
Is there more collaboration required between distilleries, in the sense that, there's very few distilleries, if you like, providing grain for others so that they can enter the cheaper blended market?
Yeah, I don't think grain is the problem. Like, grain, like the grain that's in the market, there's going to be so much grain that's out there. Like, grain isn't the problem. It's the malt is the problem, and it's the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right up to 20-year-old malt. But there's a problem, and there's limited people with supply contracts. Like, limited people, like, you count them in one hand. So for us to buy whiskey, we don't have a supply contract, so we have to buy whiskey from so we don't have like a supply contract to get 20,000 LPA of 20-year-old whiskey a year.
Yeah.
Of 20-year-old single malt. So like we have to buy it from call in favors from friends and within the industry to try and buy. So when we're buying it, it's third, fourth, fifth hand, but there's third, fourth, fifth margins in it as well. So the price of premium products that we want to release is so much higher than what they should be.
Well, can I play devil's advocate on that? Because some people will say, look, you set up a distillery, you set up a brand, you go into the business knowing that there are limited supplies and this is what the market is. Now, I am playing devil's advocate here. It's not necessarily something I agree with. I mean, is there an argument that says, well, you're investing, do your homework, do your research, and make sure you can get the supply of what you need?
No, definitely. Like 100%. But nobody thought 10 years ago, there was going to be nearly 40 distilleries in Ireland.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, there were 3 or 5 or 6 or whatever 10 years ago, and now there's 30. I mean, should these 30 new distilleries not have done better homework and found out that?
But nobody, in fairness, nobody sets up a distillery to buy third-party liquid. The thing is to release them. For us, it's about us producing or getting liquid for Dunvilles. Why we will always have Echlinville as Echlinville, but again, it's like as Dahi said, there's probably 200 brands looking for limited stock.
No, I understand that.
And you're 100% right in playing devil's advocate. But again, if you have 1 pint of water and 200 people need it to live, I mean, how much can you charge for that 1 pint of water? It becomes a bidding war, but it becomes a very much unrealistic bidding war.
Well, I mean, the other side of it, the side I see of it is, we're trying to lift the whole sector here rather than necessarily particular brands. And lifting the whole sector means support for everybody, which means ensuring that they do have supply of stock that they can function in. That's the other flip side of the coin, of course. So, look, I mean, you can take both views on it, and neither is necessarily wrong or right. As a whiskey lover, I'd love to ensure that every distillery has availability of stock that they can go and progress and get to the point where they produce their own grain or their own sufficient stock to be able to go to market.
Yeah, and it's okay. Obviously, now with the new rules in Japanese whiskey changing, hopefully that will free up liquid where prices will somewhere in a few years become modest again. But yeah, there's like here, it's a business as well. We know that.
Look, I mean, these are the growing pains. I think the growing pains of a fast-growing industry. And that's just one of them. And I think we'll adapt.
Sorry, Serge. Is it a fast-growing industry though?
Well, in terms of number of entrants, I'm not saying in terms of necessary in terms of sales or growth.
Like if you look at the reports of Irish whiskey growing at the fastest rate, like it's the fastest growing spirit in the world. Is it the fastest growing brand, or is it the fastest growing? So I mean, the whole industry isn't growing at that rate.
No, not everybody can grow at the same rate.
No, but it's most of the smaller brands are producing more white liquid for Foggia gin than they actually are a whiskey, because the opportunity isn't there within whiskey. I think and that's to play devil's advocate back onto you, but the industry isn't like, it's a pretty picture. I totally get that, and it's amazing. And I work in Irish whiskey, and I'm proud of where Irish whiskey has gone. But we also need to probably have a bit of an eye opener as well, that Irish whiskey, premium Irish whiskey, isn't growing as fast as blended Irish whiskey. So for 40 distilleries or whatever it is now, 39 or 40 distilleries to survive, and as Dahi said, 200 brands, we need to be focusing on premium. And again, Middleton have been doing this for the last 5-10 years. They've been putting a big focus on producing a lot more premium products, but some of the big guys don't want to look at premium products. They're just focusing on
the smaller distilleries, as far as I can see it, they don't have the ability to come in at an entry-level price, because they don't have the economies of scale. They don't have the source liquid available immediately. And so this is going to take some time, I think, for them to be able to tackle the really growing market, which would be the blended entry-level whiskies. But I mean, we'll see where it develops. It'd be interesting. But look, I mean, the markets are expanding, and I don't know how you see. Obviously, America is a big market, and we always talk about America being a huge market. Where else do you see the emerging markets?
Yeah, like South Africa has grown incredible. Like even our domestic market, like our domestic market is flying. Someone said in one of the comments is the COVID closure of pubs made a big impact on an ambassador's role. Of course it has. Everything now has gone to online, but you can see things like this wouldn't have happened a year ago, so it's great. And if you look at this, will probably this will go out to thousands of people, and hopefully millions of people will listen to it. That's me being modest, but yeah, it's one of those things that things like this never happened before. So there's a plus side to getting our brand message out there because of COVID. But the big thing that the pubs being closed is huge for brands, the smaller brands, because it was the local pubs and it was the whiskey pubs that were kind of taking a lot of stock off the smaller guys, and obviously tourism as well. When you have 12 million visitors coming into Dublin every single year, it's a
well. Look, I wanted to talk to you about the pubs because you always have been a massive proponent of the Irish pub, and I know you're hugely sympathetic with what the Irish pub is going through now at the moment. And no matter what sales you're getting online, I don't think you'll ever really make up for what goes on in the Irish pub. And this is a piece we did with you 4 or 5 issues ago, where we went and visited Cronin's pub, and I may as well publicly apologize to you that we never gave you the credit in the magazine for setting that up. So in public, I'll eat humble pie and apologize for that. But that was a fantastic day out.
It's okay. I'll get my solicitors off you now.
Yeah.
No, it's like, for me, this is my favorite pub. If anyone's never been to it, so the guy in the middle, a guy called Sean Cronin, he's like a industry legend. He's the bread and butter of the Irish whiskey industry. He's the guy that is selling premium whiskey. He's the guy that's trying to sell premium whiskey, and he's the guy that's trying to support everyone as much as he can. But he also knows what the industry is, and they own a pub in Crosshaven, 25 minutes outside of Cork, and it's just one of the best bars you'll ever go to. So we decided that in my role in Beam, that we went down to Crosshaven, and this is Dennis in the middle, which is
Dennis,
which is Sean's son, Dennis Cronin. We went down and we says, "Friggin', why do we not do friggin' whiskey tasting in a boat, circulate the waters?"
Yeah.
And so we went out and done an incredible whiskey tasting, and had the whole Cronin's family involved. Then we go back and just eat this amazing bit of fish that is caught that morning. But yeah, these are the pubs that you don't really get to see these things, and that's where the amazing thing is of this guy here. Like, this is the amazing part, is as a brand ambassador, or these are the amazing moments. These are the moments where you meet people like Sean Cronin, and he's been quite good to me over the years. Really good. And like, there's a few, if I had kind of tip for a brand ambassador, it would always be like, the reason you got the job is because the people who employed you thought you had a bit of a personality.
Yeah.
So don't change your personality. But the other big thing is that don't be afraid to ask for a favor. And he's the type of guy that you went in and you asked him for a favor. Said, "Listen, excuse my French here, but the boss is breaking my balls here.
Yeah,
I need something here." Like, he's the guy that would throw you. But there's other guys like Willie Ahern in the Palace.
There you go.
Like, this is quite sad as well when you look at it, because this is the institution of Irish whiskey. This is the place where tourists globally come from, and that's what COVID has done to these pubs. And COVID has done it, but the pubs now have been closed 400 days. I mean, that's not COVID, when supermarkets or other places are non-stop open, and places like this can't open. And I think everyone, like Tesco, had an amazing bit of class there last week when they put out via all their social media platforms to get out and support the pubs, and which is incredible, because the pubs are, I would say, Dublin, it does get 12 million visitors a year.
Yeah,
people don't come. yeah, but people don't come to Ireland for the green fields and to see the cliffs of Moher. I mean, they might come. That's part of the journey, but what they're coming here is for that pub culture and that crack and the banter. And I remember myself and the other half. We were down in Galway, and we went out with her father, and he hadn't been in a pub in 8 months because of COVID. Yeah. And just the look that when he got a pint of Guinness and just looking at it and just sitting there looking at this amazing pint of Guinness and turning, just, Jesus, look at this. This is like, but the excitement in his face that he got a pint of Guinness, which is incredible. But yeah, as soon as these pubs reopen, and like in fairness, the Palace Bar has probably adapted as quick as anyone, and they're trying to do different things. And
very impressive as well what they have done to adapt. I mean, obviously, the situation has forced them to play in new markets and the online market and doing the, so you have Dick Max, you have the Palace, Thomas Connolly, you have a lot of bars there offering samples out to customers. But
there's loads of them, like the Sky and the Ground are doing it as well. Obviously Dick Max, but there's loads. Like in fairness, just before we kind of leave this picture, but there's loads of these pubs that for me, if it wasn't people like Willie Hearn, you've David Chalk, who part of the Chalk group runs the bank. I mean, like Alan Campbell, these guys, if they weren't in the industry and if they weren't the people that you could go to and say, here, listen, I need a favor, I probably wouldn't be working in the industry now, because they are the backbone of what the thing. And it's great advice for kind of any brand ambassador, is that, I mean, when you're in these pubs, it's difficult to get talking to the owner. But if you set up, I think
that's something you've done. You always had a close relationship with the bars, and I don't mean as a client. I mean, you've always been very friendly with all of them.
Here, you don't. Excuse my French again. You don't get anywhere by being a dick. And you get found out quite quick. When you are, you don't last the crack. The industry is so small. And like, it just goes to show how small it is when.
Yeah, but I mean, there can be concern about a bar, and there can be real heartfelt, genuine concern and wishing for well-being for a bar, and I think that's what you have in spades, which is really refreshing. I think I know a lot of the people are very enthusiastic and really passionate about bars, but to have that one-to-one relationship is important.
Okay, listen, this life is about relationships and it's about friendships, and like, obviously myself and yourself have been friends the whole time I've been in the industry, and it's like we'll be friends for hopefully the next 20 years.
Don't push it.
Well, we'll have to get this for this the Cronin speech. I still haven't forgiven you. So we'll
have second thoughts.
We'll settle it out of court. But so like this industry is about friends, and like I'm quite lucky as like even Mark McLaughlin there. When Mark started Celtic Whiskey Shop, it was like he came in strong Donegal accent, big bushy tail out. He was ready to be it all around him, as you would say. But I'd say for the first 6 months we probably hated each other. Then ever after we've been really good friends, and he's
I got the impression you were quite competitive with each other.
Okay, there's always competitiveness. He's a Mark's a keen runner, and I try to do it at times. But it's so there's a difference when I'm about 5 stone heavier than him. And for a while I was trying to be this 5K run, and a couple of times I get close to it. But it's the competitiveness. It's probably in my DNA. But like, even Sarah there just in the comments saying like Paul O'Hare has been a lifesaver for me. Yeah, like, Paul O'Hare is.
He's
I would classify him as a good friend as well. And like, even when the guys were setting up the friend at hand, I had a kind of bit of a couple of months off between leaving Baron Fitzwilliam and going to Suntory, and I give these guys a hand to set up the friend at hand shop. And it's they've done an incredible job when he was setting up the shop, and like it's just it is an institution to what they do. Like, yeah.
Yeah. I suppose we didn't mention Bittles Bar. I know that's another one of your favorites up north as well. Brenda Hand,
Yeah,
of course.
if I had to pick a person who I'd say probably his personality probably represents me more than anyone in the industry, I'd say it's John Biddle. Like, it's just an absolute savage pub, and he's always he's always supported me as well. Like, he used to come down and buy kind of rare collectible whiskey from me and my days in Celtic Whiskey Shop, and every time we're in Belfast, myself and the other half, we're always in. I always try and get in for a few pints, and he's great guy to talk to, and he's done an incredible job. Small family business as well, which is the pubs I like going to. I like going to kind of family run pubs. There's a bit of charm about it.
I mean, when I was up in Belfast, I used to walk by his place early every morning, and he would be there every morning, 8 o'clock, sweeping outside the bar, getting it ready. So much pride in the upkeep, as do most bartenders, bar owners. The huge pride in what they own, and it's a fantastic work ethic. So,
like, I remember calling in to see. I hope Willie doesn't mind me saying this, but I remember calling and seeing Willie, and I was saying to him, like, "How are you keeping all this?" And like, it was getting to him, and I was all, and you only realise that this industry is a drug. And to these guys, it's even bigger. I mean, like the likes of David Chalk, every time you're in there for lunch, he's there. He takes his time to go out, have a good chat with you. But he's doing that to every single person in the building. It's like, hospitality is a drug, and it's the reason why these guys are successful is because the hospitality standards that they have is next to none. They're just incredible. But yeah, it is a drug, and the industry, and it's even Sarah saying it's a lifestyle. Unfortunately, it becomes a lifestyle. Like, it does. You fit everything else in your life around it.
Yeah. A huge commitment. And look, we've mentioned it many times on the show. We really just hope they get back to some level of normality in the very near future. But look, obviously, COVID has had an impact on you, I'd imagine, and your role over the last while. Or has it been a chance to take a breather, maybe, or not in a breather in the sense of the amount of work, but certainly the amount of travel?
Yeah, like, big time. It's like, for me, like, once I left Byron Fitzwilliam, and there was an opportunity come up, and it was just before COVID had hit. It was about 8 months before COVID had really hit, and I had the opportunity to work with Suntory. Suntory were doing a direct route to market within Ireland. They were putting their alcohol brands, Jim Beam, Kilbegan, Connemara, even Teachers, less sexier brand, Aftershock, even less sexier again, but they were putting them in-house, and Ireland was the test market for Suntory Global. Like, anyone knows Suntory. Suntory's one of the biggest companies, just not drinks company in the world. And soft drinks company as well. If you think of in Japan alone, they release 500 different soft drinks every single year as MPD. Maybe only one or two of them will stick, but it becomes 100 million business type thing if it does stick. So it's I had the opportunity to join the guys, and they took all of the Beam Suntory brands into soft drinks business, into Lucas Aid Ribena. And for me, that was great. It was a really good learning curve to help the guys set up the brands within the market. But then COVID hit, and obviously we were still busy, but it was a completely different way of working. You were working from home. And at the time, I was key accounts in the on-trade, but that soon changed to kind of helping everyone with off-trade or doing other things, or helping the guys get products listed in the likes of Tesco's and these and other big multiple retailers. And it did become a little bit different. And there was no traveling, and you're sitting in the spare room. Which, to be honest, it was hard to get used to at the start. It really was, because when you are away so much and you're sitting in the house thinking to yourself, what am I doing? And I'll hold my hand up. I don't drink at home. Very rarely. Before COVID, I didn't. There's probably only so much I could stick a Siobhan, and there's only so much Siobhan could stick at me. So alcohol kind of probably kicked in. So I kind of missed that pub scene, and miss being in the pub for, like, you would see me. I occasionally in a Dublin pub, sitting in the corner with myself, just having a pint, not even doing anything, just listening to. I'm a real nosy git. Like I like listening to other people's, but it's not what I like listening to other people's conversations. I just zone in and listen to other people's conversation, which is probably a really bad habit, but I'm sure it passes the day on it as well. But so but once within that, there was like myself and Jarlath would be friends before I went to Echlinville, and like obviously the next step for me was going to Echlinville, and well,
let's talk about let's talk about the move to Echlinville. Firstly, how did the opportunity come about, and what was your reason to leave? What was a successful role in Suntory?
Yeah, and to be honest, it was a bit. Looking back now, it was a bit crazy to leave such a because the sky was the limit, and I get on quite well with everyone in the company, from the top dog to so at the time it was a good guy I was working with, Jason Ford, and like I reported into him, and he was just really, really nice guy, great way about him. But then the top gaffer in the place was a guy called Mark Ahern, who again was just a proper decent, good guy. And you could see that there was within Beam, there was a career progression that was lined out within that company. But it was also I get on quite well with people within Beam International. A guy, Carl Worm, I get on quite well with, who's now I think he's managing director of e-commerce for the world now within Beam Suntory. So I'd probably built up a lot of friends domestically and internationally within Suntory. So there was probably a good time for me to be in the company, because it was going to go far. But I always, within my days in Barry Fitzwilliam, I worked with Remy Quancho. Yeah. And I always had an affiliation or a passion more than. And I was always, after that, I was always kind of really enjoyed being associated with Bruichladdich.
Yeah.
And I remember going over with a couple of guys from the industry, John, who works in Celtic Whiskey Shop. He's actually now working for Pernod Ricard, and Michael Fogarty, who doesn't need an introduction. Everyone knows Michael. And we went over to Bruichladdich Distilling School, or Academy, Distilling School or Academy, whatever it was. And it was pretty much, you went through the whole process of everything, of going to where their barley is, cutting peat, doing everything, but you're being on Isla and really understanding what Isla was. And when I went to Cooley, I made a commitment when I left Celtic that I would only ever work with a distillery you didn't have to tell lies, and you could be open and you could be transparent. And within Cooley, it was because everything they done it themselves, and then working with the other brands was great. But for me, I always wanted to work with that farm distillery, and obviously Bruichladdich just isn't. All their products aren't farm distillery, but they have certain products that are. But I always said if I ever leave Suntory, probably the only company I'd want to work with is Echlinville, or someone like Pernod Ricard. But obviously the opportunity never come to go into someone like Pernod Ricard, and it was. But for me, it was Echlinville was a company, because I like working with great whiskey, and obviously that's the kind of Pernod Ricard side where like their brands are incredible. Some of the best whiskeys I've ever tried in my life, like just comes from that distillery, and it's like has to be probably the most rewarding job or probably the easiest job, I would say, selling these great liquids.
Yeah.
But myself and Jarlath play football together, and we try to play.
Well, that was actually funny you should mention that. I was speaking to Jarlath earlier today, and I was saying, if there's only one question I should put to Stephen, what would it be? And he came back and he said, "Who's better at football, him or you?"
To know the thing, myself and Jarlath are quite similar, is that we go and we play for an hour, and there's some really good footballers that we play with, but we give it 110%, and it's pretty much when you get into the car, none of your body can move because you've run that fast. Yeah. And where the likes of myself and himself if we were in the same team, we were never getting beat, and it wasn't because of the skill set we had. It was more just because we didn't give up running, and we maybe a bit of Manchester United done that, we'd probably be doing better than what we are now. But yeah, and it was like we're probably different. And in fairness, he has about half a foot on me, so he can run
he's
faster.
Slightly taller than you.
Yeah,
but he maybe has a couple of years on you as well.
Yeah, he does, but more, sir, he can't beat experience.
Yeah, well, that's it. That's it.
Yeah,
look, let's talk about the move to Echlinville then, and just talk a little bit about Echlinville itself. So I've got a few photos here, and people forget that Echlinville has been around for close on 8 years, and the rest, and they obviously had huge success with their gin. But just trying to put a Echlinville Distillery in context for anybody that hasn't been there, it's set up in the Ards Peninsula up here on the northeast coast, and it's a beautiful neck of the country that hasn't been exploited as well as it should have been as a tourist place. But there are some stunning scenery there, and I'm hoping the distillery visitor centre will attract more people there. Of course, there's a lot more beyond that, but this Portaferry and the locks, and here's Echlinville Distillery. I think this is an early photograph.
Yeah, this is a very early photograph. Not even the Echlinville sign is up.
No Echlinville sign and no bench outside. But
yeah, like even like with Echlinville, it's probably to go back to the start of how I ended up at Echlinville, and like it was obviously that connection with Jarlath was kind of what kickstarted. But I remember meeting Shane 4 or 5 years ago at Whiskey Live and just having really good chat with him. And obviously Shane Braniff, not many people know, but like he's been in the industry as long as most people. I mean, in the early 2000s, the guys they had Strength for Gold. They were shipping as much Feckin, which I think is probably our best brand. I love our brand.
That for the censors, Feckin whiskey is a brand of Irish whiskey that quite successful in itself.
Yeah, like the brand is quite successful, and it probably doesn't get the credit it probably deserves, but it's but again, we very rarely, Feckin is Feckin, and we talk about it in a completely different conversation away from kind of the other brands. So I totally get that, but the lads have been in whiskey for a very long time, and they when I went up to meet them, there was something completely different happening at Echlinville. And like obviously this is an amazing photo of the still house, but when I went there and I was chatting to the lads, I thought, Jesus, there's so many people around, and this was at the height of COVID.
Yeah.
And the team was there making hand sanitizer. And at the time when I was up there was a huge need for hand sanitizer in Northern Ireland. And obviously this is Shane out in the field. So Shane will always be proud to be a farmer's boy, and he grows up in a farming family. But at the time there was a huge need for sanitizer in Ireland, and there was a few people that were really taking the biscuit. And I think at the time 5 litres of hand sanitizer was like 75 quid.
No, I remember
people were quoting.
Yeah.
And Echlinville at the time it's quite a close knit community, that part of the world, and they just started making hand sanitizer for local churches, for local hospices, and all of a sudden it just became a lot bigger because Echlinville carved the new pricing structure of what hand sanitizer should be. This is in the height of a pandemic. It's not about robbing people of their money because it's a necessity. I mean, and that's what a lot of people were doing, and for us I hate saying us because I wasn't there, but for the lads at the time, like it was a big thing for sales or for the staff within the distillery, because they could have been sitting at home, and the furlough scheme in Northern Ireland was 80% of their wages or 80% of their salary, and they could have been sitting at home not working at all, but they went in, they worked ridiculous hours to make this hand sanitizer to support. And a lot of it was given away. A lot of it was given to charity, and that was a part of it. Like that was a huge part of.
Well, I think a lot of that. Yeah, I mean, look, I've heard so many goodwill things about Shane Banff. And, this next photograph, I'm actually surprised he even allowed a photograph to be taken, because he's just not one that likes the limelight. And it's never been about him, the distillery, and his philanthropic nature is really probably not recognized out there as much as it should be. I know.
Yeah, he's like Shane's a very humble guy, like a really, really humble, and like obviously because of COVID reasons, myself and Shane are kind of we're in the manor house of Echlinville now. That's where our offices are. So I get to work with him a lot closer and get to know him as a person a lot more. And he is exactly that. He's just a quite humble, normal guy. Is probably the way to explain it. But he's such an interesting guy. He's like talking to him. It's you can just you get to learn so much about him as well as a person. But like obviously he's a successful businessman in his own right as well. And Echlinville, I always remember the saying that the late Oliver Hughes had, who like it's again you say, and people who influence you within the industry. And like when I was in Celtic, Oliver would have went out of his way to had a lot of time for me, and which was great because I was quite young in the thing, and he was obviously quite influential within the pub scene and then within the whiskey scene. Yeah. But he would have been one of them. But for Shane, it was going back to that Oliver Hughes quote where he said, like he's investing what he's accumulated in his whole life to put into a distillery. He'll not see the benefit, but his kids will. And this is very much like Echlinville. I'm sure he's probably looking at me now saying,
no, I don't know.
We employed you to make sure that it hurries up a little bit quicker. But he is a great guy, and that's where for me going into Echlinville at the time, I probably could have went in earlier, but I don't think I was ready for them, and I don't think they had the products what they have now for me to go in. So it's probably a good time and it's a good fit. And within Echlinville, they've an incredible team. You've obviously everyone knows Jarlath, who's our brand ambassador, but he's really our finance director. We don't really, when we talk about Jarlath, we just tell everyone he's our brand ambassador, because if we just say he's an accountant,
it's easier.
Yeah. Well, it's boring. I mean, no one's going to give him any credit. So but then obviously we have Greg, who's part of the distilling team, and Graham, who we all know who he is. But there is a lot of kind of unsung heroes there as well. We have Peter in the distillery, who pretty much he's a referee 90% of the time between everyone from killing each other, let's say, or between maybe Shane and Jarlath. But he pretty much makes everything tick. He's at the centre of everything. He's pretty much the Roy Keane of Man United. You could say. Then obviously you'd know Anne-Marie. Again, Anne-Marie, Suzanne, and Claire are really, really important within the distillery, and from sales to marketing to everything. So there is a big team within Echlinville, but there's kind of a lot of unsung heroes.
It's a big. Well, it's not a big team, but certainly it's a very family atmosphere within there. And even when you go up, you're greeted with your cup of tea, and when the visitor centre was open, they were doing sandwiches and tea, and but one thing that's not commonly known about Echlinville, I think, or not as commonly known as it should be, I think one important aspect of it is that it is very much a glass to, a grain to glass distillery. So obviously here you see the farm and harvesting off the fields. I'm not sure if that's the distillery in the background or warehouses, but that's harvesting on the fields there in the Irish Peninsula.
So this is the farm, and again going back to Shane as a farmer, that's the background he came from. Jarlath comes from a background from a farming family. But when the lads done Echlinville, it was about producing products that were from the Irish Peninsula. Everything that leaves our distillery has touched the hands of someone in ours, which is a great thing to say when our products are in global markets around the world. It's great that they've rooted back, but with Echlinville, the commitment what the lads made was that every single grain of barley that goes into Echlinville products, so if that's Echlinville single malt when it comes out, or Echlinville pot still when it comes out, but even now Echlinville gin will 100% come from Shane's fields. So Shane owns the land that grow. His cousin Michael runs the farm. So Michael Braniff runs the farm. Shane Braniff owns the farms. I think we have around 50 acres of land where we grow the fields. On the Echlinville estate itself, Shane owns the distillery and the manor house and the grounds around the distillery. But at the back end of the distillery, Jarlath's brother runs the farm there. So once production gets up to a level where we need more fields, I'm sure that's a conversation that everyone's going to be looking at Jarlath saying, listen, we need to buy farming land for Echlinville Distillery. You own the farming land closest to the distillery. This is where we need the land. So there has to be a tiny bit of lobbying done on Jarlath's behalf to get more land for us.
Yeah, that's one of the things, though, when people talk about fields for barley, they don't usually associate the Ards Peninsula with good growing conditions for barley. But it is, in fact, an excellent source of fantastic grain. We see the malting floors, which I think, if it's not unique, it's close to unique for any of the Irish distilleries. And of course, malting is usually something that's outsourced. But you have your own malting floors. Is it on site?
No, so it's a few miles away from the distillery on the farm. It would be great to have it on site if that was ever possible. But again, it's with the growth of the distillery. At this time, warehousing is probably more important. As you could only imagine, sending warehousing on a secure site is better than having it on an unsecure farm. So, like, the warehousing is very, very important to the next phase of Echlinville Distillery. So we need more bonded warehouses. We need maturing more stock for the growth of our brands. So yeah, it's a few miles away, but as you said, it is unique. This is one of Shane's tanks. So
I mean, it's not every day you're going to go to a distillery and come across a tank. And this isn't security. This is actually a real live tank on the site. So Shane's a bit of a collector.
Yeah, you think that, but we have Michael Cowman inside it.
Oh dear! Okay, well, I don't know if it's a good shot or not. That could go anywhere. He's an avid collector of a military vehicle, so tanks. And yeah, he does enjoy them, which is great. And like that big one is sitting out on the distillery, and there's a couple in the sheds as well, which are incredible. I know Graham and Jarlath are really keen motorcyclists as well. Yeah. I think does Graham race them, or he used to race them?
Yeah, like Graham's huge into motorbikes, like there massive. He is there. Yeah. So he's huge into motorbikes, and it's and even like the distillery has an association with Glenn Irvin, who's a motorcyclist from up around Norway, and we sponsor his Hamlet with Dunvilles and things like that. So yeah, there is, like, the guys are all quite big into motorbikes. There's the three of them, so the three musketeers. Now, people ask me the question, someone says, why did you join Echlinville? And you look at these three lads, and you turn around and say, Jesus, they need a good looking lad to come in, don't they?
Oh, is that what it was? Yeah.
That's exactly what it was.
The five, I think, so that's a relatively old, but people forget the distillery is there, 8 years, which is quite long. So, you haven't, as of yet. Now, I have to commend you on this, actually, because I think it is a big point. I mean, a lot of people say they won't release their whiskey until it's ready, but very few actually stick to it. And it's coming on 8 years now, and you haven't been tempted to release your own in-house whiskey yet. Is there a philosophy behind that, or what's the thought process?
I think the big thing in Echlinville, and it's everyone, like, if you look at these brands, like the Port Morant that in the box there, like every single cask that the guys have released under Dunvilles is just incredible quality. And when the guys took the Dunvilles brand and started releasing the Dunvilles brand in 2012 again, like this is a brand that dates back to the Dunvilles Family Association with alcohol dating back to 1808, and it's a brand that is synonymous with Belfast. Like we always say, there's three industries of Northern Ireland: weaving, shipbuilding, and whiskey. And Dunville's was the centre of what whiskey was in the world at the time. I think there was something like 14 million gallons of whiskey was made.
Oh, it was one of the biggest, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and 2.5 million of those was made in Dunville's. And so when the lads got the Dunville's distillery closed in 1935 or 1936, and it was at the time it was one of the only, I think it was the only distillery in Ireland that closed that was still profitable. It was just that there was no one, the last kind of Dunville's family member that could really run the place. It passed away suddenly, so the distillery was pretty much put into the hands of the directors, and it was pretty much liquidated, or it was shut down essentially straight after, I think, a few years of running it. In 1931, he died, and in 1935, I think it was shut down. So yeah, it's something that with Dunville's, when the guys took it over, they did make a commitment that everything they do is going to be really, really high quality.
Wow.
And it's going to put Dunville's. No, but it's going to put Dunville's on the map for being great quality products, and that was the big thing that was the big commitment that they done when they got the brand, that they were going to put Dunville's, but more importantly Northern Ireland whiskey back on the map for being a high quality products. And with Echlinville Spirit itself, they've also made that commitment that they're not going to release a product until it's perfect. They're not going to release a product until it's high quality. And I think it's probably bad to release a 3 or 4 year old whiskey that's not high quality. And and for us with Echlinville, there is that story around terroir, and like we probably don't really talk about it.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, terroir has become very topical, I suppose, in the last couple of years, but it's been something that you've built into the distillery from day one.
I think the whole thing of terroir, it's a bit ignorant to say that it's not there. It's not. It's a really lack of understanding of what Ireland as an island is. I mean, we have cattle in one field for a reason. We have grow crops in another field for another reason. We have built, going back generations, we built our houses off the land. We've lived off the land. Everything is about the land, so everything is about terroir. So it's a bit ignorant to say that it's not there. For us, we probably don't shout about it, but for us, we just want to release a high quality whiskey using the products from our thing, and we don't want when these products come out that people say they're crap, because it's not what we want. It's not what the distillery is about. We want to release good products, and instead of focusing on the barley, we want to focus on high quality barrels and high quality whiskey.
Yeah. When do we expect to see a release purely of your own liquid? It's coming up to 8 years now, so is it close to being ready, or it'll be ready when it's ready?
I got to say it's going to be ready when it's ready. We're trying a lot of samples at the moment, and there's a lot of casks that are great, and we're transferring a lot into different woods at the moment to put. Like, if you're putting them into woods for finishing, you're not a million miles away. But I can't see it being this year, maybe the end of next year or the year after. So the end of 2022, 2023 would be my guess. But again, anything could happen. But
what you have released to date, and it has your own twist on it and your own finishes, they've been lapped up, and there's almost a scramble to go and get your new releases when they come out. But if we talk about a few releases that you have had so far, so obviously you had the Dunville's blend, and then you had the Three Crowns, which I think was probably one of the first peated whiskies for a very long time. I've got the Three Crowns here, and you were telling me it's got a slightly different branding to what it used to have.
So I actually have one here as well.
Yeah.
So I might as well have a glass of this.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
We've been on here for an hour and 25 minutes, and I've been waiting on you to mention, shall we have a drink?
Well, I was waiting on you, so there we go. We're going to...
As they would say up around our way, have a tongue on me like Gandhi's flip-flop.
Well, look, you very kindly dropped by with some of these earlier.
So you didn't
very
go out and
safe
buy
way.
them? Yeah.
Well, you know how tight I am. I never buy anything, but
Yeah.
no,
So
it just tastes sweet when it's not paid for.
Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, so like with Dunville's 3 Crowns, this is like if anyone has been in a Jarlath's tastings, like he's quite open in how the kind of evolution of Dunville's 3 Crowns. At the very start, what the guys were doing was using younger whiskies and using older whiskey. So they were trying to boost up the younger whiskey by using 15-year-old Oloroso sherry cask whiskey, which Jarlath would kind of always say that it wasn't the best quality whiskey that they could have released at the time. Where now the whole focus is on just actually doing what we do well in Dunville's, is using really, really high quality barrels for finishing. So we're blending 3 or 4 different whiskies together within 3 Crowns. Different ages with malt and grain, but different ages of malt and grain, blend them together and finishing them off in really good Oloroso sherry casks to really give it this flavor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is for those that are afraid of trying a peated whiskey, this is a very approachable, quite a delicate.
So this,
peated whiskey.
this one is their peated one. So we have a peated one on top of this. So this is just their standard. Then unless you have the peated, you might have the peated.
I'm on the peated one here.
Yeah. So for us,
oh no, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so for us, we released 3 different ones. We released 3 Crowns and we released 3 Crowns peated. So I'm always a bit conscious when we say we, like as if I was involved in it.
You really settled in. You really settled in, yeah.
Yeah. I've been here 5 years now. Yeah. So I'm a bit conscious when I say it because I don't like selling it. So I promise that the next 2 whiskies I've been involved in, we'll try these. Can you please start producing more Maras? Yeah, geez, if only Sir Dunville's Maras now command ridiculous money. They're constantly fetching big money.
Yeah, thousands. No,
yeah.
So the one I have here is the standard. I have the peated somewhere as well, but this one, like it is delicate. This one, and this has been. So, what's the composition of this one, and what's the pricing on this one?
Yeah, so like it's under £40. I think it's around €45. So it's a good entry point into the market for 3 Crowns and for the premium side. So within Echlinville, everything was around the 10-year-old and the 12-year-old.
Really,
but the problem was that we had a Dunville's 10-year-old PX and Dunville's 12-year-old PX. So the 3 Crowns products were slotted in perfectly, as one was peated and one wasn't, and they were perfect for the market of what they needed. But kind of the next product that we'll try is the one over your shoulder there, which is our new product. So kind of sip on that for a while, and we'll talk about this.
So, but before we talk about this, I want to talk about the 12-year-old PX, the Pedro Jimenez finished sherry. I mean, fantastic whiskies, really well acclaimed, won many awards, reasonably priced for the, and then quite a few single cask and cask strength versions of that emerged, and then I suppose it further developed, and we had the 18-year-olds and the Pablo Cartano finished rum, and I know there's a 20-year-old now as well. So those are all super high-end whiskies, not super high-end price, but they are fantastic whiskies.
And it's like with those, I always say making a good whiskey is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not hard to make a good whiskey. Like it really isn't. It's quite simple. You buy good liquid, and you put it in good casks, and you get good whiskey. It's not. Yeah. It's not complicated. Like it really isn't. The thing with what Shane and Jarlath and Graham are passionate about is getting the best barrels that we possibly can. That's the hard part. Like that's the difficult part of sourcing these barrels. But the lads have drawn up kind of great relationships with cask suppliers, for sherry casks, for many different casks that we have coming in at the moment. But yeah, that's what they believe in, and like both Jarlath and Graham, they're huge, the huge Glendronach buffs, and they're huge sherry bomb buffs. So it probably suits all them with these whiskies that are coming out. So when I went in, and like obviously when I was chatting with the lads, when I went in, obviously my role is the bread and butter part of it is selling, looking after international markets with the rest of the team, and trying to put as much Dunvilles out there in the world as we possibly can. But the fun side of it, or I would always say the part-time side of it, is helping the lads develop good whiskies and create good whiskies, and be a part of kind of all the new releases. So yeah, internally now we've kind of pretty much a good old team that looks after everything from Chris in the warehouse to myself, Graham, and Greg, and obviously Jarlath looking after most of the casks, or most of the releases. So yeah, there is a good team going on there now. But again, yeah, I really do go back to that. It's not hard to produce a good whiskey.
Well, look, I mean, I know the rum casks that were used were extremely old and extremely contributive to the whiskies that you released in the 18-year-old, and extremely expensive.
Yeah, so the 18-year-old, when the lads released it, they released a 18-year-old Port Morant, and Port Morant Estate is one of the rarest rums you'll ever get in your life. So they used this old style wooden pot still, and then once Port Morant closed, it transferred to the Caroni distillery. As you said at the very start, I'm a bit of a collector, and obviously when the whiskey market exploded, the Irish whiskey collector scene exploded. There's about finding a different edge and finding another spirit, because there's just too many people in the Irish whiskey industry paying stupid money for products that are never going to make money. So for me, I probably wind down on collecting Irish whiskey, and which is a shame because that's what my passion is. But I have a couple of good friends. I have one of the kind of best collectors I've ever heard of or ever seen is a guy called John Marner. Like his knowledge is next to none on global spirits. I guess this guy is a genius in these products, and he kind of got me into rum and kind of learned a lot from him about rum. And so now I would collect rum, and I have a few of these Caroni casks. Not many of them, but they're going for crazy money now as well. But this famous pot still from Port Morant Estate then went to Caroni. Then Caroni closed, and now it's a diamond distillery, which is El Dorado. So it's a Guyana rum. The rum itself was matured in the barrels for 41 years. Like the rum itself costs you just ridiculous money. Like for a 41-year-old Port Morant, you're paying thousands. For that. So yeah, it's a bit of distilling history, and Shane used all his contacts to get these casks into the distillery, which was great.
Well, I mean, it really paid off, and the box set that was created off that, the original one, well, I mean, second to none in terms of packaging and presentation. But I know Shane well enough to know that he doesn't do things by halves. He really went full out on that.
Yeah, he did it, but he does for all our products. Shane is incredible, and he works with a really good guy, Mark, to design all our labels and design all of our brands. And he's very heavily, and that's his passion. That's what he loves doing. He loves that side of the business. And if we want to go on to 1808, which is our,
this is a new arrival, so you can show us there better. So this was kind of a surprise, came out unexpectedly into the market. I know it's been described as a gateway product. So what was the philosophy and the thought process around releasing this 1808?
Yeah, so again, it goes back to what our biggest problem within the whiskey market is that we were slowly becoming a luxury whiskey distillery, and which was great, because with that, the guys work really, really hard, and even Kieran, Graham, and Charlotte argue about releasing casks, and just putting down like really, really nitty gritty things that you wouldn't really, not too many people would care about. But that's their whole ethos behind that is about making sure that every single cast that they release is better than the one before, which becomes really hard when you're releasing really, really high quality whiskeys. That's the hard part about whiskey. It's not hard to make a good whiskey, but it's hard to make one better than a good one. And that's the kind of where the likes of Kevin O'Garman is he's in a world of his own. One of the best in the world of what he does. And then you come to Billy Layton, who without a doubt I feel is the best blender in the world, hands down. I don't think there is anyone better, and that's what they do to produce these incredible liquids. And with 1808, the whole thing was that we've done the hard job in putting Dunvol's back on the map and putting Dunvol's in the hands of the whiskey buffs and the whiskey nerds, and getting it the recognition that Dunvol's is a top quality brand with top quality liquid and at an affordable price point. And don't get me wrong, they are expensive, but if you drink whiskey of that quality, they are really, really good quality. They're really good value for what the quality that goes into the 12-year-old cask strengths and some of the single casks. And the guys released the 12-year-old cask strength last February, so we're probably 14 months ago, and it took like 3 hours to sell out. And
but a lot of those single casks are the same; they just disappear. They're
that's it. It took 3 hours for the 12-year-old to sell out, and 10 months later, it took 2 minutes for a 20-year-old single cask of 300 bottles to sell out. So it was something that was just incredible, how quick the sell out. But again, it's of high quality. But the thing for like the lads would say, this is obviously for me coming into this distillery, I needed a product like 1808. Like the other products, they aren't they're so easy to sell. Where this one is about us kind of getting out to the global markets and selling in volume. But still at a premium price point. It's still if we consider Jameson as €30 and ROI, it's 38 euros for 1808. So it's not ridiculously more expensive, but again, it is slightly premium. And for 1808, if you look at the two brands behind you in the VR and the Three Crowns, they were two original Dunvol's brands from Royal Irish Distillers. There were two brands that the guys had brought out, or that the original brands were already out, and the guys kind of brought them back out again, relaunched them. Where this one is the very first brand under the Dunvol's portfolio that is Echlinville, essentially, that is 100% Echlinville's approach on Dunvol's. So we could say that it was 100% brought to life, essentially, by Echlinville. It was never on the market before. And the 1888 goes back to when the Dunville family started within the alcohol industry, and it's we say it's a modern blend. And Dunvol's at the time were like they had their first 60 years of their career within the whiskey industry of blending really good whiskies. So for us, it was about bringing the brand, or bringing that kind of tradition back into Dunvol's. And so it's a blend of malt, grain, and pot still. And the unique part of this is, and I'm really proud for, like, when we were working on this, and it was probably the first and second and first whiskey between this and probably the last one we might have a sneaky try of if we have time, the 20-year-old 1717. But these were the first two whiskies that kind of really had a good helping hand on from liquid to everything that's in the bottle to put out when I went into Dunvol's and went into Echlinville. And so the good thing about this is that it does have a tiny bit of Echlinville spirit in it. So the pot still component that we use is Echlinville, which for me I think is amazing. We try Echlinville spirit every day. Yeah,
so it's a blend of pot still, grain, and single malt. But you were telling me earlier, it's quite a significant percentage of malt in this.
So like we're kind of 70-30 of malt and grain. We're kind of sometimes it's to get the blend right, it could be a couple of percent more. And so obviously that's the art of Graham as well, is trying to consistently make this the same for every single market. So, and every single batch. So like sometimes there would be more in it, and for us it's like the color is all natural. We don't put caramel into it.
We were talking about this earlier, and I spoke to, I think you're earlier. There are 2 batches of this. This is the second batch of, and this one seems a little bit darker than the first.
Well, is there 2 batches?
Well, that's the other thing.
There's definitely 2 different color caps. So you've the first one came out and it was let's just talk about this one. About the first one. So there was about 1,000, 2,000 bottles put out of grey caps that are in the ROI market. So they're kind of in the supermarkets at the moment. And there's actually not that many of them out there now. So they're probably the one that will be the collector's item in the 1808. But for this one, we don't want to use caramel. And as a distillery that we don't want to use it. And it's not what we have anything against caramel. We just don't want to use it within our product. So this is really going down to that really good wood management to ensure that the color of the barrels or the color of the liquid is influenced by the barrels. So it's as you can see from your bottle, it's a lot darker than
so there's virgin American oak used for this as well.
Yes, here we go. Obviously, we've been around the whiskey block a while, so if you're not using caramel, you're using some sort of barrel to darken it down. So we're using American, heavily charred American oak to get that influence of color, but also the flavor. But for me, the best thing about this liquid is that kind of lovely singy spiciness to it at the end, and that's what Echlinville adds to it. Echlinville, we drink Echlinville quite regularly in the distillery, and we're constantly always trying it and seeing what we can do to change the liquid as well for batches that are going to be released in 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. So with this one, it was we wanted to add that kind of, we call it a modern blend. We wanted to add that modern twist of what the Irish whiskey market is now, and Irish whiskey now is quite spicy.
There's a nice depth in this, there's a nice depth of flavor in it, and there is that spice, there is that clove, and definitely the vanilla and citrus notes are there, and orange peel, I'd say, as well. But it's very, I didn't expect that. Now, this is my first shot at this one, and I have to say, I do like it.
Yeah, it's like, for us, this is the difficult part as well, because we're creating a whiskey that's for the masses. We're not creating whiskey for the likes of Belfast Whiskey Club or Irish Whiskey Society or the people who attend these, who are drinking really, really old whiskey all the time. We're creating a whiskey that you can go into the Duke of York or the Palace Bar or the Bank Bar or Cronin's or Dick Mack's or Sky in the Ground. You can go into all these bars and just have a whiskey and enjoy it, or have a whiskey and a pint and enjoy it, or have a whiskey and ginger ale and enjoy it. We wanted a whiskey that was quite versatile, and that this is when I said earlier, when the 20-year-old and the 18-year-old, these whiskeys are easy. Like, they're easy to create. 1808, the arguments that myself, Jonathan Graham have had, and it's been pretty much like there's sometimes, and Graham is the toughest job because he's to blend it and he's to constantly talk about it. So he's absolutely hating us when we're saying we need to change, because we probably went through maybe 15, 20 different blends to get to where we are now. But we're quite happy where it is now, and it is a product that a whiskey connoisseur can enjoy in the pubs. And
I have to say, I really like the branding of it, and I'm delighted that you kept away from the coloring, because I know there is this perception, particularly in the States, that the darker it is, the better it is, and all that. But you refrained from adding color, and you've gone down the using version and heavily charred cask, which
the other side,
commendable.
The other side as well, Serge, and it's a tough part, because the best way to create a brand is listen to your consumer.
Yeah. And
the consumer is the person that's going to buy the brand. It's not me, Jarlath, Graham, Peter, Claire, Suzanne, Anne-Marie, or yourself. It's not us. We're so when we're designing a brand that we like, it's it's probably not the best approach to take. We need to design a brand that the consumer wants and the consumer needs. So I totally understand that the darker whiskey is what the American market wants. And you're totally right, because if you look at the whiskeys that they're used to, their native whiskey, they don't use colouring, and they're all really dark because they're using fresh American oak.
Well, they have to,
yeah. So that's where the colour influence comes from, but that's what they're used to doing. So for us, we kind of have to be somewhere in the middle between that as well, and we want to create a brand that the consumer wants. And to be honest, if the consumer doesn't like it, it doesn't sell. So we are a distillery that and I know Jarlath probably more than me, when he takes a lot of this, not to heart, but he takes a lot of it on board when we do get criticism of even our single release or single cast releases, if someone doesn't get one, because when they were building the brand, it was about getting Dunvilles everywhere and getting it into everyone's hand. So yeah, it's when we do get kind of some bad reviews, it does make us think about how can we make this better and what exactly does the consumer want, and that's the only way to build a brand.
But is it very difficult to go from producing super premium whiskey that's 18 and 20 years of age, aged in expensive casks, to go now and introduce something at the, as you say, at the gateway level?
Yeah, it is in a way, because again, you have to produce a lot more to make the same amount of money. Is one way, and it's a lot more difficult, and it's a lot more time consuming. There's a lot more time put into it there's a lot more time put into it to actually to sell these brands. But again, It's enjoyable, and like this year we'll break into South Africa. We have a really good distributor lined up for China. We're some going out to Austria. We'll break into France, for the whole of France. So yeah, there's this product is going to open a lot of doors for us. And our other gin brands, we have incredible gin brands and Weavers and Echlinville. Obviously, we make Jawbox, which is one of the best Irish gin brands in the market. It's just an incredible brand. So yeah, we do have with these we've huge plans.
And you do the poaching as well, don't you?
Yeah, so we make Bon Poaching with Dave Mulligan. Obviously, Dave Mulligan is a proud owner of Bon, and he's this guy is what's, when you look at a category like poaching, he is the poaching category. He is the industry. He's the foremost most educated guy on poaching. He's an absolute genius. It's an incredible job for him, and it's for us to make Bon. It is that labor of love in a way, because it's a very difficult product. It's a very difficult product to make, but we want to make it how Dave wants it made. Yeah, and that tradition. So yeah, we do make a lot of different products, which is great, and even
Well, listen, you were very kind to come by today with the 1808, and actually, I'm actually really impressed with it at the price point, because, and not to be negative, but I did try the earlier version, and I think this is considerably better. And I know it's something that will probably progress and maybe even improve in further batches, but an excellent whiskey.
The thing, even with just before we finish on 1808, 1808 is the one that we we're going to have a lot of fun with 1808. We have a lot of casks laid down with 1808 liquid in it, a lot of versatility, a lot of coming with it. There's a lot that we can do with. We can kind of bend the brand a lot and put it into many different barrels and put it into many different markets.
Is that the plan, to have different finishes on that 1808?
Listen, for 1808, it's fun. It's as much fun as we possibly can have, and if the consumer wants it, we'll put it into a market. And if there's a barrel out there that holds whiskey,
you'll have a look at it.
1808 in it, and it's that's kind of the fun project that's going to come up with 1808. So over the kind of the next 12 to 24 months, definitely look out for that as well.
Yeah, it's certainly labeled and bottled as a premium well above the €38 that or €40 or whatever it is it costs. But you were very kind, and you came by with an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old, and I'm not having a go at your Eton, but you know, if we compare the size of what you came with both, I think there's something. Now, luckily, luckily, I do have my own 18-year-old, which I was very fortunate to get from the.
Yeah, you were. I didn't see you sharing that with me.
No. You can't, well, COVID, I couldn't let you in. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that old chestnut.
Yeah, but look, I'm gonna go for this Port Morant, and a sample of that, and you know, I've tasted it several times before, and fantastic, and just the color of it alone. Let me empty my other glass before I.
And there's two. I'm gonna have the 1717 and a.
You're going straight to the 20-year-old.
Yeah, Jarlath always says the best whiskey Echlinville has ever produced is the 18-year-old Port Morant.
Yeah, well,
while he's not, but while on that, I think the 1717 is the best that we've ever produced, and I just think the techniques that went into it as well was just incredible. But for while you're drinking the Port Morant, which we might as well talk about it. It's like this is the cask that a 41-year-old rum, and there actually isn't that much of it left. Which is when it was released, it was probably it got a lot of criticism because of the price. But like I think how the Irish whiskey industry is now,
if it came out again as a new release, it wouldn't have a problem with the price. You know, if it was re-released at that price.
No, probably not. But again, it's not okay. You learn from your mistakes, and it's not what it was a mistake because it's sold and there's still a huge demand for it. So it's probably wrong to say it was a mistake, but yeah, but again, the thing that I know it bugs me at even Jarlath is there now, so I mind the P's and Q's here now. But even with he's going mad there. He's not that old.
Yeah.
No, but it's with the Port Morant, more people were fixated on the price and not on the quality of the liquid. And the liquid is sensational, and like those kind of 18-year-old County Louth double distilled whiskies that I worked with for many years, they're some of the best whiskies in the whiskey market. They're just absolutely sensational. And when you do put a really good strong finish onto them with a really good cask, I just love when whiskey from this distillery at this age just gets this lovely tropical fruitiness. But then when you put that kind of rum into it, where all that kind of
I nearly say that jumping out of the glass. I mean, what I love is the fruitiness and the spice, but also I love there's a mustiness as well in this, and I just love it. This is an old style, heavy, bold whiskey that. At a cask strength, it's drinking as easy as the 40%. To be honest with you,
yeah, I think it's John Cashman describes that County Louth distillery double distilled. I think which he used to work for as well. I think he describes those whiskies of a Starburst. When you get at that age level of whiskies, that when you open up a packet of Starburst, you just have all these different tropical fruits, this bouquet of tropical fruits that within the whiskey. And this does, but then again, if you think of that kind of musty, big boldness that you're getting.
Yeah.
Remember that the cask held whiskey for 41 years. Or rum, for 41 years, which is just incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I have to say, and I'm not picking favorites among any brand, but I really do love this one. It's just bold. There is a sweetness to it, but there's a bite to it as well, and I won't say a sourness, but there is that edge. But it's just balanced perfectly,
Yeah, no, they're it's just an incredible whiskey, and I've tried it a few times, and the first time I tried it, I liked it. But it's such a difficult whiskey because, and the other side of it, this market isn't used to drinking rums like that.
Yes.
that are the Port rum, and that kind of, like, I always think that the taste of them is that when you have a bit of plastic and you take the cellophane off the plastic, that gluey taste, and that's or that smell you get on it. That's what these rums taste like. And like I've been lucky enough to try some of these over the years, and actually Jarlath let me try. He had a tiny bit of the Port Morant, so I tried a tiny bit of that, and of the 41-year-old, and it's just distilling history. Like, it's just a legacy that.
Well, I think that's part of it as well. There's no doubt when you open the box and you have that rum sample in it, you just feel very privileged to be able to.
Like, has there ever been another whiskey released in the world that has had the exact same liquid side by side? I mean, within the one package, like, obviously there's obviously the beer barrel releases and stuff like that, where has there ever been something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that was, and I know that rum sample was very expensive as well. I'm gonna quickly move on to the 20, just because I'm looking at it here, and I've never tried this before, but this is deeper, more amber color than the. So tell us a little bit about this. Obviously, this is Oloroso's doing that.
I poured myself a tiny bit, but I'm going to pour myself another tiny bit, because these whiskies are incredible. And since you've made me wait an hour and a half before we could have a drink,
look, obviously the bottles shrunk in the travel coming down, but nonetheless they're very appreciated. But
I have to make sure you pay the excise on it as well. I'll drop that invoice down to you.
I've been a very good client of Echlinville, I have to say. But
so
look, this is the color is the first thing that strikes me about this.
Yeah, so the thing, it was originally, so it's obviously double distilled from that distillery I used to work in, and it was matured in bourbon, then it was transferred. And like, if you think of a Tyrconnell 16-year-old, it's one of the best whiskies on the market for Irish whiskey ever. It's like, just the bourbon cask is just sensational how good it is. So it's essentially this whiskey, and it's transferred into Oloroso barrels. And Jarlath and Graham made a decision to take it out of Oloroso and put it into PX.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a few of the barrels that there's a few kind of cool things happening over the next couple of months, that you might see a sister cask of this or a similar barrel to this that comes out into trade over the next couple of months. So there's definitely something that's going to happen with this cask sister, or close neighbor, could you say? But they took the decision to take it out of Oloroso and put it into PX, and that's where that kind of even deeper color comes with PX. But I can remember Jarlath saying that after the first 6 weeks, the cask was just flying, but then it kind of dipped. So when I came to the distillery, the cask was actually in a still house. And as you know, like, our still house is all glass, so it's a lot warmer. And the bad thing about Echlinville is that it never really gets warm, it never really gets cold. It's quite consistent. So if you're talking about maturation, it's very hard to trigger maturation, because in the summertime it doesn't get really, really warm, so maturation is speeding up, and in the wintertime it doesn't really get really cold. So it's just that kind of consistent the whole way through. So they took it out and they put it up into the still house, and this obviously triggered maturation to go a lot faster because it's a lot warmer. And with this, it was just absolutely incredible. And we were talking about whiskies to release, and we have probably the most famous cask that we have in the distillery is I think it's 162, which is a Oloroso cask, and it's still in the distillery now. But the problem with that is that it was always the best cask that we had in the distillery. So the lads were taking it to every single whiskey show. We're tasting around the country and letting everyone try it. So now there's kind of only 140 bottles or whatever there is. So we couldn't release that at Christmas because the cask was far too small. So we kind of had that problem where, what are we going to do? Yeah. Like, we need to release a whiskey here. So I asked Chris to pull a sample from this cask that was up at the top. And I remember sitting down and trying it and ringing Jarlath straight away. I was like, you've got this wrong. Like, this whiskey is incredible. And give Graham a sample. He was like, yeah, amazing. And just over that kind of small length of time that it was in the still house and not warm, and it just brought the whiskey so much further. But now the fruits are so pronounced, but even the trying it, and I tried it with Jarlath of what it was and to what it is now, to before and after, and it's just incredible how the whiskey has changed. But this is, for me, I think this is. I kind of don't want to be biased because I can't, but even if I didn't work for Echlinville, I'd say this is one of the best whiskies that's on the Irish whiskey market. It's just sensational.
Look, I'm not being funny about it, but it's the legs on this are phenomenal. I mean, they're really thick. But this is, if there's such a thing between if there's such thing as a cross between a Redbreast and a Tyrconnell, this kind of sits in that area. I don't know. It kind of takes a bit almost from both.
Yeah. So the style. Yeah. This is probably me coming into the team. This is the different side of, like, this is the type of whiskey I like. Mm-hmm. They obviously, Jarlath and Graham love these types of whiskies as well, but their style of whiskey is that really old Oloroso dryness types of whiskies. Mm-hmm. Well, I think Jarlath is really loves that old style Oloroso dry whiskey. Yeah, I'm like that kind of Tyrconnell 16 fruity with a kind of lovely, nice fruity finish on it, and Graham is somewhere in the middle. So there's very much it's probably the only place in Northern Ireland where there's democracy when we're in anything. When we're releasing whiskies or when we're picking casks. So with this one, it was kind of in the middle, but it is one of those ones that it's exactly how you describe it. It has all the lovely fruitiness, but it has that nice kind of Oloroso dryness as well. And I just think
this is
it's special.
Yeah, I mean, what's unusual about this is easier to drink than the rum one. Now, look, it's a fantastic whiskey. Personally, my favorite is, I love rum, so I love the previous one. But this is incredibly easy to drink.
Yeah, and in fairness, we probably tried them the wrong way around because the rum is so aggressive, and there's a lot more, like the rum cask is a lot more spirit driven, where this is a lot more delicate and just, it's the glorious thing about these whiskies is
on the tongue. It really does. It kind of just floats above your tongue.
Yeah.
The rum is full on and bold and musty, and this is more delicate, maybe even more rounded.
Yeah, the rum is one of those whiskies that you will try it 100 times.
Yeah.
And it'll be different every single time. Like, it's just, it gives you something different every single time. And in fairness, I think a lot of our older whiskies are like that, where you can continue to try them and they just get better and different and are completely opposite to what you tried the first time, which is, I think, is a great sign to a great whiskey.
It's all very promising. It's all very promising for the future, I would think, in terms of, how you treat your own spirit going forward. I'm sure you've learned so much from finishing in these various different casks and maturing in this cask that when it comes to releasing your own spirit, hopefully there'll be a lot of lessons that have been learned, and we should get some cracking releases then.
Yeah, that's the plan, and again, it goes back to, we put a big emphasis on top quality barrels and focus on top quality barrels, and just if I told you the figures that the lads spend on barrels, you wouldn't believe it. Like, they don't skimp on barrels. Is that the reason they get the best barrels is because, like, they're paying just stupid money for the casks. But again, this is the result you get, and that's I would rather drink a whiskey that is 100% and lives up to 100% of its potential than live up to 80% of its potential because you didn't put it on a good barrel.
Yeah. No, look, I mean, they are fantastic whiskies. And the only thing is they disappear too quickly, and then you find them on the secondary market at extra 30-40%, which is, but look, that's the way the market is.
We can't, that's something we can't control, and but unfortunately that is the market. And
but actually, I'll be honest with you, I didn't have high expectations of the 1808. I'll be honest with you. And especially, I like I said, I did have a snip of the previous batch. And there's a big difference here, I think, between this and the last one. And I really do like it. But let's talk about what you've got in stock and what you've been working on, because I know we did a 7-sip series with Fionn, and we worked with Graham and Jarlath very closely on producing a non-GI compliant whiskey at the time with oats and wheat and barley. Are you going to be producing a lot more experimental whiskies going forward?
Like, I hope so. Like, we're a distillery that the sky's the limit. We're versatile in what we can do. We're not a mega distillery, but we're not a small distillery either. We're not tiny. But yeah, so there's a lot we can be doing, and this is obviously like 1808, and now we've pretty much completed the portfolio, and we can add more and more to the portfolio. Like what we have are kind of just above standard entry in 1808, and we have amazing whiskies and 3 Crowns and 3 Crowns peated. Then it leads into the kind of the premium, then leads into the ultra premium or luxury products. So now we have all that boxed off, and we have our gin brand Weavers boxed off, and we have Echlinville gin, and we have obviously the Feckin products as well. And again, we have we make Jawbox. We have all that done now, so there is that opportunity for us to do things different. And like the GI compliant part, like obviously that's all going to change. Like over a matter of time, it only takes a time for these things to change, and they will change because the market wants it to change. And as I said earlier, listen to the consumer.
Absolutely,
if that's what they want, like the technical file will change. But I think the technical file at the time was put in place for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And if I'm 100%, like if I'm honest, I don't think there was one query when the technical file was released. I don't think anyone objected to it.
No, and look, probably nobody looked at it.
Yeah, but that's So it's I think with the technical file, it will change, because like how can we release a brand that we own the rights to and recreate the recipe and put it on the market, and it's not exactly what it was? It doesn't make sense. So like obviously time will change, time will pass, and these things will change. And I mean, they do, it'd be great, but again, it's better that there is some rules, that we're just not getting a 3-year-old spirit matured in paint tins.
Well, look, I mean, I'm really encouraged about what the future is going to bring. Particularly, I mean, Echlinville were experimenting. They were you were all very helpful there to help us produce that unusual mash bill that Fionn came up with, and I know there's a couple of others there in the pipeline there. But if we go back to your role, Stephen, and I suppose your role has changed from, as it was a kind of a brand ambassador, to international or global sales. How are you finding that? How have you settled in, and what are the challenges that you didn't expect as part of this role?
Yeah, like in fairness, I was a brand ambassador 5 years ago. So in fairness, I'd say I've kind of worked with the biggest customers in Ireland in sales over the last kind of 5 years. And like the big thing for us was our route to market in Ireland, our home market. And we recently signed a good deal with a High Spirits Ireland for the north and the south. And like it was big for the distillery, and like myself and Jarlath, like it's put countless hours in to try and get this over the line. And it was something that our brands probably suit their portfolio really well. And it was something like, even to get this deal is like, I've known like George Roberts, who from High Spirits was a huge part of it, and I've known George for a long time within the industry, and he's and even before I kind of really got to know him, like the guy's a gent, and I can remember having a conversation with him. Just remember meeting him, and he said, "Listen, obviously you're in the kind of that start of your career, or you're at the part where your career is kind of going to take off, or whatever it is. And if you ever need any help, or you ever have any questions, like, here's my number, give me a shout." And that was something that was kind of 4 or 5 years ago, and it was something I've always kind of kept quite close to him. And when I knew, probably in the summertime, when I knew I was coming into I was most likely going to go into Echlinville, I approached him, and straight away he obviously said, "Listen," because in fairness, I work for Beam, he's Sazerac, so our brands were were in competition together.
Yes.
But we were always kind of remained friends, and not that we wouldn't be friends, but we always remained industry friends. And but I remember sitting down with him and saying, "Listen, this is happening," and straight away he just said, "Right, listen, let's get this to the next level." And it was something that the passion that he showed was definitely for us. And we, if I'm brutally honest, we didn't look at anyone else in Ireland or the North to check our brands.
Yes.
We didn't have a plan B, we didn't have a plan C, and thankfully for me, plan A worked, because plan B and plan C could have been why did I leave Suntory?
Yeah, well, having a plan
yes.
B and a plan C is like a safety net that, you know, is there, and it kind of propels you to kind of maybe not put the same effort in. But I mean, it's important because you know, we followed the Dunvilles story from the very beginning, and we're delighted to have worked with them and have met the team and see it flourish and succeed. I think not only amongst the connoisseurs, but, you know, as you said, at the gateway products. But one thing that was lacking was the reach. So I couldn't easily go into a supermarket here in Dublin and go and find a Dunvilles whiskey. Now, hopefully, with the Echlinville brand, with the high spirits distribution behind, that'll all change.
Yeah, like for us, we needed, like every single person we meet in any market, I always say we need the right distributor, because our brands are complicated, and I want my goal for the world of every single market we go into, that there's passionate as talking about Dunvilles as Jarlath is. They have that passion, and they believe in the brand, and they want to believe in the brand. And obviously that's not always possible. He's on a different scale of a passion. But even like I want them to talk about how we talk about them, or about how the rest of the people in the distillery talk about them. But also the brands we put a lot of effort into creating the brands, and it's just not about putting a liquid in a bottle. There's actually a lot goes into creating that liquid, and the great cast that we use, and the packaging, and like Dunvilles 1808. There's a story behind what it is. Like everything. I always think the best brands in the world, you can pick up a bottle and you don't need to talk to anyone. You can get everything from the bottle, and that's like 1808 is that. So for us, we wanted to hook up with a team that could do that, and High Spirits could, because their staff are just on a different level to what a normal distribution company is. Most of them are kind of whiskey buffs. They have a great mix between male and female as well, which is great. And like obviously the industry is it's changing rapidly between males and females as well. And we have a great brand manager in there, a young girl called Neve, who's like just really, really passionate about what we do, which is great. And hopefully that adds a different dimension onto to the girls that we have in the distillery as well, and Suzanne, Claire, and Anne-Marie, and especially Anne-Marie and Suzanne, who work in our marketing side. So we can definitely really elevate that. But yeah, we needed a company that could actually go in, talk to you, or talk to Willie Aaron, or talk to Dave Chalk, and actually really explain what the products are. So yeah, like High Spirits.
Well, hopefully you've got that now. Like I said, I'm looking at the labeling, and I'm looking at the branding, and I'm looking at the cork, and you know, there's nothing short of premium on the 1808. But one of the big successes I suppose you've had as well since you've joined is you've managed to get distribution in the US as well with Total Wines.
So Shane, like in fairness, this is nothing to do with me.
Okay.
So this is like Total Wines has been our partner in the US for a long time, and Shane has a great relationship with Total Wines, and Claire, who works in my team as well, within the sales side, she's had an incredible relationship with them over the year, and between herself and Shane have really, really developed the Total Wines account, and the guys really believe in Dunvilles, and like in fairness, they took a big gamble in our brands, and like it looks like it's starting to pay off, or it's definitely going in the right direction. So yeah, like Total Wines is it's an important part of our business, and but even to be associated with Total Wines is like it just brings, it's great for Dunvals, and it's the same with being associated with High Spirit, or being like when our South African distributor comes on board, being associated with them. It's just incredible. Our Austrian
Well, if anybody's
distributor.
ever been to a Total Wines in the States, it's like walking into Super Value, but it's just dedicated to whiskey. They're probably bigger than a local Super Value. And,
yeah, like they're incredible. Yeah, they're just like, they're pretty much trolleys for alcohol.
Yeah,
which is incredible. And yeah, like for us, it's really like, it's an amazing for the Browns to be there, but they just don't support 1808. Like they support Three Crowns, and if the Maltars weren't there, we'd have a lot more. We'd have the malts in as well.
Yeah.
So hopefully over the next while that'll be lifted.
So that's one of the things I wanted to briefly touch on, and I won't keep you much longer, Stephen, because I know we only said an hour or an hour and a half. But
it's okay. This is probably why I don't do these things, because I can't shut up and it's great crack.
Well, one quick question then. What challenges do you have as a distillery up in north that others down here may not face?
Yeah, it is a difficult one, to be honest. And it's like, one side of my whole career, I've worked in Dublin, and I wanted to, like, I'm very patriotic. I'm proud of where I'm from. I do come from a small town, and my whole family live in that small town. My dad's a painter and decorator. It's like we don't come from the riches of distilleries or anything like that, and it's like, so I'm really proud of where I'm from. And I always wanted to go back to Northern Ireland and to work in a distillery, but I needed to work in a distillery like Echlinville, and I probably needed a role that I could be involved in a lot of different things. Obviously, primarily my passion is in sales, and I enjoy sales. I like, if you look at John Teeling, he gets a buzz from selling things, and that's probably similar to me. I get a buzz from breaking into new markets, or getting a buzz from doing good things within sales. That's my passion. But my love is drinking whiskey, and like, it's it's kind of what I do. So it's great. It's great that someone just said there, and you have Neil Lennon. He wouldn't be as famous as Ginger as me now. Yeah.
That would be Liam. Yeah.
Yeah. So so where Neil Lennon grew up, it's about, from the school I went to, is about 20 yards from the school where his family grew up. So yeah, it's like, to go back to the north, to be honest, I don't think we care, if I'm brutally honest. Like, there is that north-south divide, like in anything. It's not, like, I've worked in Dublin from 2010, and it's not the first time I've been told to F off home to where I'm from. And there will always be that north-south divide, and that's just life. There always will be. But what we have going on in County Down, as Brendan Cardy's here. I mean, if you start off in Newry, you have Brendan Cardy. We go up into Crossgar, Balnahinch. We're looking at David Armstrong, who's a good friend of mine, who's an incredible distillery. Some great whiskies coming out. He's between him and Fiona.
Really looking forward to what's going to come out of there.
Between him and Fiona, they've put a lot of time and effort, and he actually joked that himself and Jarlath are the old lads in the industry now, even though we're actually not that old as a distillery. But then with Hinch there, if you go over the Strangford Lough, go into Dunvals. Yeah, so there's great things happening within, and it's something that tourism A&I, and there is like Peter in the distillery we were chatting about earlier. He's like, this is where he comes into his own, and this is where he's so passionate about. Like, he wants to put these things on the map, and he wants to put Echlinville on the map, and he wants to do as much as he possibly could to get Dunvals, or to get Echlinville on the map, and he's quite heavily involved in these tourism. But the thing that Peter's passionate about is that, why can we not have a whiskey trail? Like, Kentucky is an incredible whiskey trail, but like we don't. I'm being brutally honest. People don't want to work with North or South. That's grand, but I think as an industry together is 10 times better and 10 times stronger if we're promoting each other. And because the thing is that when we go to Japan or we go to America or we go to Russia, we go to South Africa, we go to France, we go to the UK, we're promoting Irish whiskey. So if you can't promote yourselves in your own market, then you're not promoting anything really. You're just criticizing your own product. So yeah, that's the good thing. Like, and I really do hope that we all do work closer together and we start this trail within County Down. And like what's happening outside of that, to be honest, I don't care. And there is that there's not we're quite lucky that we have someone that's been in the whiskey industry for a long time, and Shane's been in the whiskey industry as long as most people in the whiskey industry here. But then you have another guy over in Derry, behind a quiet man, Kieran Mulgrew, who's a good friend of ours, and like, he's been in the industry for as long as anyone, and he's done amazing things for the industry, and he's done incredible things for growing Irish whiskey globally, but also putting Irish whiskey on the map, but also putting Northern Ireland spirits on the map. So like there is, and obviously Bushmills is Bushmills. They're a global brand. They've done incredible things. So yeah, but it's about us now. It's working together and trying to actually grow Northern Ireland whiskey, and that's for me. That's the glorious thing about it, and that's why I moved to a distillery in the north.
Yeah. Do you get a feeling that where you are now as well, one of the attractions is that you have a chance to make a bigger impact where you are? Maybe being a family-run kind of business?
Yeah, it probably is. Like in the role I was previously in, it was probably the company I was previously in was quite frustrating because they have so much versatility in what they can do, and they just probably don't want to do it. Like when you're up against some of the biggest brands in the world that's within your portfolio, it doesn't really work. Where I like to fight where I like to fight that every bottle counts. So what I mean? That's a sign we get lost. Got
on the way up to
Echlinville. We're also in Northern Ireland. We don't want people coming in nicking our casks. No, I think that's the glorious thing about Echlinville as well. But obviously that'll change if there is a tourism, and the big thing that stops Echlinville from tourism is transport. Like there needs to be a transport system, and this is something that the Northern Ireland government.
Yeah, there was talk about it building up a bus service and a tourist coach service between Belfast and the Ards Peninsula. It's certainly something that's needed. Yeah,
like big thing. If you think of if you think of the distilleries in Belfast, if they do happen, like you start off in Belfast, you get on a bus, you get to the Ards Peninsula, you come in and visit us. You get a bus to Portaferry, get the boat over. You go to Hinch, you go to Sharcross, you go to Cologne, or then you get straight back up the M1 back into Belfast. Like that's not a tourist map. I don't know what is. Like and tourism in Ireland is massive and it's growing. Like what do we say? We have 1 million visitors visit a tourist attraction. The biggest tourist attraction in Ireland is Guinness. So there's 1.6 million visitors a year. I think we have a million visitors go through tourist attractions for whiskey between north and south. So I mean, if that doesn't warrant investment and actually putting it out there, I don't know what is.
Like I said, I mean, the Irish, a lot of the tourism has been focused around the Antrim coast. It would be great to see the Ards Peninsula getting that kind of coverage as well, because it's unspoiled and unexplored really, and hopefully that'll change. You know, I know there are people working on it.
Yeah, and I think it is, and like on our side is like we're for the kind of Strangford Lock Committee where Peter heads that up. Like we're the main company that's involved in it, and we're driving that as much as we possibly can to promote just not whiskey, but promote small businesses, food businesses within the area. And like it's okay when we have Game of Thrones and it gets a lot of American tourists, and there's a couple of doors on the peninsula from what was in Game of Thrones, but it's great if we actually actually start promoting all small businesses, if we're all working together, just not whiskey industry, but if the food businesses are working with a distillery, and we become a bit of a destination within the peninsula, similar to Dingle. Like if you look at Dingle, like they have the food festival every year. It's like Dingle is an incredible town for what it is, and to be honest, it is a town, but it's incredible for tourism. And like Arch Peninsula can become that, and it can be led by people like Echlinville, who are bringing people to the area and just get more businesses, but more kind of collaborative working and more government support to actually get people to that part of the country, because it isn't easy to get to. So we need a decent bus route that'll bring people from Belfast down.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I'm excited about what's going to come out of Echlinville. I'm excited what's going to come out of the north, because there's a lot of activity. You know, there's rumors of a lot of distilleries in Belfast. You know, obviously you've got Cologne, you've got Hinch, you've got Radham Estate. Bushmills reinvented themselves, if you like, and there are other distilleries in the pipeline. So there's a lot of activity up there, and I suppose around the whole island there's a lot of activity. Where do you see the future for yourself, Stephen, and where do you see the future of Irish whiskey?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I hope
will they be in the same place?
To be honest, when I joined Echlinville, the reason I joined is the number one thing you have to figure out: can you work with people? Yeah. And when you go in, most people have been there for years. Jarlath has been the FD in the company the brand ambassador. We don't call him the financial director anymore when we're talking whiskey, but like he's been in the company for nearly 20 years, and he still wakes up every day and he still is passionate. Like Peter, Claire, and Suzanne have all been in the distillery for a long period of time. So it's like, for me, it's, you have to figure, can you work with the people that you are, and they're all great people. So for me, I can't see why, like, as I said at the very start, everything I do is quite calculated in my career. And I could have took 3 or 4 roles before I left. I went to Beam, and I didn't, because I didn't think they were right for me. But this is, for me, like, I'd be happy if I stayed here for the rest of my career. It definitely is. So, but again, the business is growing, and there's going to be an opportunity to grow within it. And so, but again,
it'll be nice to see and get the rewards of your efforts.
Yeah, and it's like, I won't say, like, for me, it's not as much. I always say the reason why I went into sales was that if the Irish whiskey industry failed and it become a bit of a struggle, that I could go work for Andrex, or I could go work for Kleenex, or I could go work for Johnson & Johnson, and I would have the skill set to work in any of these companies. So yeah, that was the reason why I left 5 years ago, left being a brand ambassador, and went into kind of commercial side of the industry. And like, that was the big reason. But now that, like, when I went into Echlinville, like, great things are happening here. Like Dunville's, great things are happening within Dunville's, and it's on the cusp of it, I think, of exploding. And that's probably me being too ambitious. But yeah,
no, I feel it. I have to say, there, you know, the product is there, the branding is there. It's just getting it out there now.
Yeah, and it's and you kind of the other side. You asked a good question. Where do I feel the Irish whiskey industry is going? And again, I said it at the very start of this conversation. If our leading players in the industry aren't growing premium whiskey, just not domestically, domestically isn't the thing. We can't all support. The consumption of alcohol in Ireland is going down. People are drinking less. Don't get me wrong; they're drinking better, and the stats are showing that. And they're drinking less alcohol, and they're drinking better alcohol. That's great for us as an industry, and definitely Echlinville as a distillery, that's incredible. But if the big guys aren't growing premium whiskey in America, they aren't growing premium whiskey in Australia, New Zealand,
Russia,
Africa, South Africa, Russia. If they aren't France, if they aren't growing all these brands, or if they aren't growing their main brands internationally, then there's no route for us to get into that market, because we're at a premium price point. So the industry it's at a vital part, or it's at a vital point in the kind of the resurgence of Irish whiskey. We've done it. We're now a category again. Jameson has done an incredible job, and the people in Pernod Ricard have invested so much money in getting Jameson back to what it is. Tullamore Dew has done a sensational job. I think they're now something like 1.6 million cases. Bushmills are on the path again to getting back to where they were. So everyone is, and we have the biggest drinks companies in the world that are in Ireland, but we need to be investing, and we need to be promoting single malt whiskey. We need to be promoting premium whiskey, and it's just not all about the standard whiskey. That is because the problem you have with standard whiskey, if you look at Scotch whiskey, one of the biggest markets in the world for Scotch whiskey is the UK.
Yeah.
And the retailers in the UK use blended Scotch whiskey as a loss leader. It's a bottle to get people into the shops.
Yeah.
And we can't have that happen to Irish whiskey. Because us as a small distillery, just like the other 35 small distilleries in Ireland, excuse my French, we're pissing against the wind if that's where the market goes, because we can't compete, and it's a race to the bottom. And that's what's happened when there's so much whiskey on the market. It is a race to the bottom. So we need the industry to grow, but we need the big guys to start growing the premium products. And in fairness, Middleton have been doing this for a long time. And like, if you think of when we met and when I started the industry search, there wasn't that many premium products. But if you look at what's happening now, like Middleton have a premium product coming out every couple of weeks at this rate. So like that's great. So once those premium products
figures, if you look at the growth figures, I mean, you see 10% growth at the standard level entry whiskies, and the premium is growing at 50+% almost, in categories.
Yeah, but like I'm brutally honest, if you sell 5 bottles of spirits tomorrow, and the next day you sell 10 bottles, you're in 100% growth.
Of course,
50% growth.
Yeah,
50% growth of nothing isn't a 50% growth of a small figure. Like, and this is the thing with stats. Stats are great until you actually delve into them and you actually look at them, because we need 50% growth of 2 million cases, 50% growth of 1 million cases, or even like if we get to 1 million cases or 2 million cases of premium whiskey and we're growing at 5% per year. I mean, that's incredible, because it's like if you're growing at 5% per year and it's
huge.
You're at pretty much a 6-figure growth per year. Like that sustains 5 or 6 distilleries each year of growth. So it's that's where we need to get to, and but it can happen, and there's great people within the Irish whiskey industry, and there's.
I have to say, I think it's starting to happen, Stephen. I can see the momentum. Like if you look what the likes of Irish distillers have done with Redbreast, and if you look at what Bushmills have done with their Causeway collection, and you see other brands going at that higher level, it's definitely at that side. But you still need an entry point.
Yeah, no, you definitely do. And the entry point is where we sell the product globally. But the entry point bursts the door down and gets you into the market. But it's about, when you're in the market, it's about rallying up the support for, and it's getting people in. And again, I don't want to continue to talk about Jameson, but they are the people at the top of the industry, and they're the people that are setting the strategies, because they have the pretty much dominance of market share within the industry. But they're the ones that is developing the industry. Like when they burst into America, like Kilbegan, when I worked for Kilbegan, they had a huge opportunity to go down the Kilbegan and ginger route, and they released a product called Two Gingers.
Yeah,
and
that was hugely successful in the beginning.
Yeah, it was, but within a couple of pubs and within the guy that was behind it, Kieran Flallard, who was pretty much behind it, but it was within one state essentially.
Right. Okay.
Instead of the guys actually going down the route of Jameson or Kilbegan and ginger and just getting that in every single state and pushing Kilbegan and ginger, like Jameson and ginger did do, And
Yeah.
like, in fairness, Jameson and ginger is a great drink. I mean, it's
Oh,
quite a
yeah,
nice drink,
absolutely.
and that's kind of our, like, ginger ale was invented in Belfast. Dunville's is the spirit of Belfast. Like, there's no better pairing than a ginger ale and Dunville's 1808. And I mean, if you want to put me into it, it's two gingers and a whiskey.
They haven't gone down the marketing route yet.
No, the marketing team just didn't.
They need a bit of
Like,
imagination there.
yeah, but yeah, so it's like, but even like if you think of Kilbegan at that time, they got it wrong.
Yeah. I
But
mean, I do think.
then again, Kilbegan. So, sorry, like, when I say they got it wrong, Kilbegan's still one of the biggest Irish whiskey brands, and they've got so much rating. It's an incredible brand. But I think if when they had that opportunity within America to explode Kilbegan and ginger, it just goes to show, if you get a strategy wrong, it can set you back. So for us, it is about finding those right strategies, and within the markets, it is about growing them.
Yeah. What about yourself, Stephen? I mean, when you're not dealing with whiskey and you're following useless football teams like Man United, what keeps you? What are your hobbies?
To be honest, I'm not really, like, this is the thing. I'm not really an interesting guy. It's just
I know you like your snooker and your horse racing.
Yeah, so I used to play a lot of snooker when I was younger, and like, obviously I love horse racing. One of my good mates, Gaza Martin, he owns a horse called "You Jump the Last You Win." So it's quite cleverly named. But we, like, between myself and himself and one of my other mates, Chris McGee, and another mate Chaka, we kind of pretty much travel the world going to some of these races, to the Derby, to the Arc de Triomphe, to Epsom. But then it's very hard to miss a big race. My big mate Godfrey Martin, we watch a good bit of the racing as well. So like most of my mates are into horse racing, and kind of, again, coming from a small town when every second door is a bookies. Most people are in the racing, so yeah, it is one of those ones. But like, obviously, yeah, I'd say horse racing I love. I love going to them, and I just think it's an incredible.
But you don't back them. You just like watching them.
No, yeah, it's probably too miserable.
Yeah.
I'd probably spend too much money on whiskey. I can't afford it.
Yeah, well, that's it.
I'd say, yeah, but
we've had a game or two of snooker as well, and yeah, I enjoyed taking the balls out of the pockets for you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, like, it's probably not like that now. The eyesight probably isn't as good. When I was younger, I was okay, and it's a good sport to play. It kind of kept me out of trouble, and that's kind of, to be honest, most of my mates that I grew up in snooker all the way, and I'm still friends with now. So I think it's great in that way. Well,
the worse my eyesight gets, the better my snooker gets. So
yes,
it's an oxymoron, but
it's always it's like one of them ones. I don't play unless I have a couple of pints.
Yeah, I know. Well, look, Stephen, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Like I said, it's funny interviewing a friend, because you want to get information out of them, and then you want to have a big catch up on a chat as well. But look, firstly, I want to congratulate you on I can see the difference you've made in Echlinville already since the short period you've joined. I want to thank you for always being there to answer any questions I've had, either about collecting or about whiskey or what developments are happening. So, and you've been very supportive of what we do here on the magazine, even though, it's not always easiest. But all I can do is wish you the very best of luck in your new career. I know you're going to make a success of it. I hope they.
Yes.
I think. You backed the right horse and where you've gone, and I think you've always made good calls that way. And
it's like, it is one of those ones. It's like I said at the very start, I kind of don't do these things, and I always think I'm not really that interested of a guy. So like one of my good friends, Mark, he's like Mark McLaughlin. He's an incredible speaker, and he's really, really passionate and interested, and he can just like, he can really hold a conversation. Where me, it's like I just rabbit hole glory, and so yeah. But the big thing is that we all, like as you said, there is like your measures assessment, and you can walk into every single bar in Dublin or Belfast or Paris, and there's a Dunville's in it, and that's when we measure success.
Well, that'll be a good measure. I'll say the same with the magazine. Whenever I can go into any store and see a magazine there, I'll be delighted. But look, all I can do is wish you the very best of luck, Stephen, and hopefully now when all this lockdown fiasco comes to an end, we'll be able to meet up a bit more frequently, because I know you go to a lot of events, with societies and things like that. So, and
that's probably one that I think if I had to go back and be a brand ambassador again, I would ensure that I went to every single tasting that I possibly could, because that's where you learn, and that's where you get the knowledge from. Tasting whiskey, like Belfast Whiskey Club, Celtic Whiskey Club. These things, they're just doing incredible tastings at decent prices, and you're learning from industry experts, and they're full of industry people, which is great.
Well, you could be doing 2 tastings a night the way it's gone at the moment. There's so many different tastings on. Yeah, it's incredible. Well, listen, I want to thank you. I want to thank Siobhan for making you look presentable for the show tonight as well. So she's exciting and everything else, and she'll take credit for that now. Well, look, again, thank you very much for joining. As I said, when all this settles down, we'll be up and visit you again. We do miss being there, and I know there's some great stuff being produced there, and just looking forward to trying it. So thank you for being a guest.
Yeah,
I look forward to catching up with you again.
And enjoy the Dunvilles.
I will do. Yeah, I'll enjoy those. Actually, I've still got that 18 in my head though. But no, congratulations on the new products as well. The 1808 is punches well above its weight in terms of price for sure. Yeah, you're getting
even
good.
Just before it goes, like 1808 is where we're going to have a lot of fun. Yeah, and it's kind of just watch this space for the next 12. Are we talking in the next
in the short while or in the long term?
Like over the next 12 to 24 months, there's just incredible things going to be happening, and like for us, we think we're onto a winner with 1808, and like it's just a sensational brand, and the liquid is good, and there's when people are asking you to constantly work and you get it, you're onto something decent, and I see a lot. Yeah, I see a lot of people writing in there just about thanks for the conversation. It's probably different from what. This is probably why I don't do these conversations. They're completely different. I'm not very much a brand driven person, and I'm more of an industry driven person. And our marketing team will probably kill me tomorrow. I've missed probably so much that I've probably meant to say, but sure here.
Well, the main reason we have our guests is to talk about their personal views as opposed to necessarily brand, but of course, to give the brands a chance to showcase what they're at as well. So I think it's been a fascinating chat. I can't believe it, the 2.5 hours have gone. For those people that have gone on maybe a little bit too long, I apologize, but just one of those things. I think a sign of a good conversation. So I'll let you go, Stephen, and go and get some dinner.
Cheers, guys.
Take care.
See you again.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Take care. Bye. Look, everybody, thank you very much for joining us. I really enjoyed that chat. I'm sorry if we've gone on too long, but there's just so much information and it's such an insight to get from Stephen. It's really worthwhile. So thank you all very much. As I said, try and catch us on our social media platforms tomorrow with some very exciting news, and we will chat to you next week. Take care. Thank you.